Hey Rob, it's Dan. Good, how are you? We are all set to record for you, so let me, and Artie's all ready?
A Jack Daniels swilling, pizza eating, dog hating, whore using, cocaine abusing, hairy back, big belly blowhard from New Jersey. The fat little bastard known as Artie Lang.
Hey, welcome to the Artie Quitter podcast. Artie Lang and Dan Filato, another scarce crew here. A lot of guys on the bench and out on the disabled list. But that laugh is a guy who I think is the perfect guest. You know, good job, Danny, man, for booking Rob. A perfect guest to talk about what I want to talk about. The series Vinyl on HBO premiered the other night, Valentine's Day, Sunday night. And the lead of it is a guy named Bobby Cannavale. I've met a couple of times. I actually met him at a birthday party for Louis C.K. in Louis' apartment. He was in a play with Chris Rock called The Motherfucker in the Hat, which, you know, I don't know how that got by, but yeah, there's a curse in the title. First play ever with a curse in the title, I believe. I don't think it was The Fucking Streetcar Named Desire. Or, you know, I don't think Les Fucking Miserables. It'd be better, I think. You know, I think. Rock was in a play called The Motherfucker in the Hat, not Effer, not Mother Effer, The Motherfucker in the Hat. That's what it said on the thing, on the marquee. And Cannavale was in it with him, and I saw it. Amazing. You know, I went to go see Chris Rock, and he was great in it. But I met him at this apartment, and Louis said, "Yeah, that guy's gonna be a big deal." And then he did a bunch of things that was amazing. Boardwalk Empire probably put him on Scorsese's map with HBO. And he's the lead of the show Vinyl. And Mick Jagger and Martin Scorsese, they produced this. Scorsese directed it. So it's a big-time project. Jagger's kid, James, is in it, one of the Jerry Hall kids, and very disconcerting. It looks like there's too much Jerry Hall in him. It looks like a ghost of Mick Jagger's. You're looking at him through a gel plate or something. And he speaks. But you know, it's about the music business in the 70s. It's based on a real story and a lot of big-time players in it. And Rob Barnett, our guest, lived that. He was basically in that whole scene. In what capacity, I'm not positive. We'll get that from Rob. And he wrote you know, after watching it, I was very, very on the fence about it. Completely ambivalent about, did I like this? Did I not like this? And Rob crystallized my thoughts in this little article he wrote. And thank God Danny's friendly with him. So we're going to have Rob Barnett speak with us about it. Rob, how are you?
Hey, it's great to talk to you. I'm a huge fan, and it's fun to be on the show with you. I felt like you. I had so many feelings about watching this thing.
Yeah.
And obviously so many expectations when you realize who it's made by.
Right.
I felt like I had to just start writing about it. And what's been fun for the last day or two is that it's bringing a lot of people out of the woodwork who all have a lot of the same conflicted feelings, I think. There's a lot of good in it,
right?
But there's a lot of things that seem to be pissing people off.
Well, let me go. Yeah, I'm going to go through the whole thing with you. And I again, thank you for doing this. But first of all, what I want to ask you is, in what capacity were you in this world? Were you an A&R guy, younger guy, you know, running around as a gopher? Were you a sandwich guy? Did you start out? I mean, are you running things? Like, what were you? You were a younger guy, obviously, back then. And what were you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm a little bit older than you, but I dropped out of college in the 70s and started working in rock radio at a very young age. And, you know, in the 70s, this was a time when rock radio was maybe, you know, it was a baby. It was still only about 10 years old.
Right.
And it was a time when disc jockeys could play what they wanted to play. What a radical idea!
Right.
on a radio station without getting fired. And actually, before I did that, I worked for a short time at a record label. I think diseased, addicted Bruce Springsteen fanatic
right.
from the time he first started playing. So I was on a quest to, you know, somehow meet that man. And I figured, well, if I was working for the record company, that would increase my odds, you know. So
that's amazing. First, I talked to Danny about this. First of all, so how old are you?
I'm 55 now.
Okay, so I'm 48. So in other words, okay, so in 1973 when this took place, I was only 6. You're 7 years older than me, so you were 13. So what age did you start working?
In 73, I'm sleeping out on 7th Avenue, waiting to buy tickets to Led Zeppelin shows, and
okay.
My first, I believe it or not, my first show, which is insane, was Jimi Hendrix opens only 4 times for the Monkees.
Yeah.
my parents took me to Forest Hills Tennis Stadium in 1967. I can barely remember that. But by the time this movie is set, I'm going to concerts, every week of my life as a teenager with, getting into the city, going out with fake IDs. By the time it gets to only a few years after this, say 1978, I'm working in radio, and Dan and I know each other because we both met some of the originators of FM radio. We got to work with some of the people that started all this. So I started, like most people, as like a snot-nosed intern.
Wow.
Buying cigarettes, vodka, and drugs for famous DJs.
Well, the first two things are easy, because they're actually in stores.
Well, no, the other things were easy too.
Yeah, I know. Well, but they're in stores too, but you gotta know what to ask, right?
Yeah,
they're behind the first two things.
Yeah, but I started, at about 17, 18, working with these guys and just wanting to be as close to it as I could.
Oh my God, yeah. You're such a you got to be a hip kid at 13, sleeping out for Zeppelin. What I'm talking about with the drugs in stores being behind the stuff. We had 3 pizzerias where I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, where if you wanted cocaine, you asked for white pizza. extra cheese if you wanted a quarter. Now, honestly, Rob, when I hear you say that, the first thing that comes to my mind is you had to be a kid that really was in the know. Like, there's certain kids, like when I was 13, I was trying to make a wiffle ball, make a 45-degree angle. At 13 to be hip enough to wait online for Zeppelin, and then later on to know what Springsteen was about. Where'd you grow up, first of all?
So I was born in Brooklyn, then
I
Long Island.
figured that,
yeah. Then Long Island. Then I went to high school in the now infamous, tarnished Fort Lee.
Wow.
Where we would, take the bus or literally walk into the city, and by 76, 77, 78, when punk was exploding in New York, we were getting into all those clubs, that were depicted in vinyl. I mean, vinyl set just like 3 years earlier than that.
Right. CBGB's, were you involved with that? Because CBGB's probably hit a few years earlier with the Ramones, like 75.
No, I went all the time.
Yeah.
I had my wish and a dream of a rock band in Jersey, and we would practice in the basement all night and then drive into the city and go to the clubs at midnight.
Wow.
In the city.
Well, go ahead. I
became a rock radio guy and did that for, I guess, the first 10 years of my working life.
Wow. My job right now hosting this show is I want to hear everything you have to say, but I don't want to go off on a tangent because this is so important to me. I want to somehow keep this in order, and
go ahead.
It's because it's so fascinating. First of all, 2 anecdotes based on what you just said. You talk about Fort Lee. In Jersey, the last exit in Jersey. I went to Cancun, Mexico with a buddy of mine. We were 19, and we went on this exotic cruise. They call it a booze cruise, and just rip you off with cheap vodka. We get to an island, and there's an exotic-looking girl, like an island girl. She looked gorgeous, like a Tahitian girl or something. And my buddy said, "Go over and talk to her." So I get up the guts to talk to her, and I think she's like this, beautiful island girl with who maybe doesn't speak English. And I say, "I'd love to buy you a drink. You have a beautiful look. Where are you from?" She looks up at me, Rob, and goes, "Fort Lee." I think I broke the record for losing a hard on.
Two less sexy words.
maybe another context. Like if someone's it went through a war and said, "I got to get to Fort Bragg." It's And if someone said, I know Lee Radswell, but Fort Lee together is terrible. Also, when you talk about those times, I was younger, and it was like the 70s and the people around them. My father knew guys back and forth who looked like Ray Romano looks in this, or the beard and the long hair. Guys who as you get older and you go into life and you're not naive, that guy probably has cocaine. Like it looks like a record guy. And at the age of 8, I wish I was hip enough to go up to that guy and go, listen, this is a long story. I have a time machine. I'm 8 years old. I look like I'm 8, but I'm really from another time. And I know you have, as an 8-year-old, I know you have cocaine. If you sell it to me, I promise I won't do it for 14 years. I won't do it till 1991. But can you please? I need coke. To me, it was corny about it, but it was a better time. There was a lot of shit going on, but movies. You had Scorsese, Woody Allen, the Godfather movies, and music. You had a lot of shit music like Bay City Rollers, the Osmonds. But man, you had Zeppelin, the Who, the Stones doing some of their best work in the early '70s. You had the punk scene that was all cool, and then you had Bruce coming in on it. And what is the first time? I mean, we go from that kid on the street waiting for Zeppelin tickets at 13. When do you go from that to, okay, I'm in the business and a bit of a player in it?
Well, it happened the first week I went to college. I went to Boston University.
Right.
And I'm in the main, the crappy dorm where most people start freshman year. Right. And the RA on the floor comes into my, little hovel with my roommate, and the guy's like 700 pounds, and he goes, "Hey, I do a radio show. You guys should come down and check out my radio show." So my buddy and I go down to the campus radio station. This is the same exact station where Howard Stern started.
And he went to BU. Howard went to BU too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, a few years earlier. It was called WTBU.
Okay.
And we go into this little AM, but barely AM radio station. It was called Carrier Current. Like, you had to live in a dorm and have it hot wired in. So if you're listening to the radio station that Howard was on right now, right, you would hear like, there was a hum on everything.
Oh, that's hilarious! Like the advertiser, you had to pay people to advertise. Like, you had to say,
it was unbelievable.
I'll give you $50 if you put a commercial on.
It was unbelievable. Right. But I stood in there. It was like that Blues Brothers moment when they walk into the church and James Brown is singing. Where we looked at this lousy guy on the microphone and said, "Oh, we can do that."
Right. No, that's great. I mean, so now you at that point you realize, look, I'm not only a fan. This is like my dream. I want to be in this business. Like I got that way with comedy, and quite frankly, rock and roll. If I was a singer, a cooler singer, I think I would have tried that instead of comedy. But so at that point, you knew you wanted to do this for a living.
That was it.
Right.
Yeah, and then I stopped going to classes, and my parents wanted to kill me, and I dropped out and started working in rock radio at like 19.
That's great. It's great.
Yeah.
So you dropped out. Now you're in Boston. Do you leave Boston, come back to New York? What do you do?
No, I had been an intern first at WBCN up in Boston, and then another station called WCOZ, and then I got a job as the weekend overnight disc jockey on a station called WAAF, which used to be based out in Worcester, Mass.
Right.
And, I worked my way up the ranks there. I stayed there for almost 5 years. And, that was kind of the beginning of the first long run through rock radio.
Right. Well, that's what kids don't want to do nowadays. What the internet has created and the immediacy of getting information. I related it right to, like, in other words, if you're having a conversation, it happens every day with me and Dan because we're talking about research for these shows. And, I said, there's a woman on this, there's a chick, the young chick in the show Vinyl. Her name is Juno Temple. And there's a guy named Julian Temple from the 70s who was a rich kid who was a big time player in the 70s art scene. And Jean-Michel Basquiat was one of his best friend. He did a movie about him, I think. He just had a bunch of money. And when I saw her, I said, her name's Juno Temple. I wonder if that's Julian Temple's daughter. I asked Dan. He immediately looks on the internet. In 3 seconds, we know the answer. It is Julian Temple's daughter. And, in the old days, you had to wait for that information. Like, imagine, you know what I mean? Imagine growing up, Bob. Imagine growing up going, I'll know. You go, that's I wonder if that's Julian Temple's daughter. A kid now 14 goes, is that Julian? If you don't give them that answer in 3 seconds, come on, is that Julian Temple's daughter? They want everything's immediate. So apply that now to life. Now you grow up like that. They're going to think the same way, in my opinion, about careers, about the world. So you stayed there for 5 years learning shit. The stuff you learned in that 5 years probably was invaluable. Like you couldn't learn that in any book. And it's experience. They don't want that. The interns at Stern now, I saw it when the younger millennials, they want to be Howard in 2 seconds. Or they want to be Chiasano. They want to be they want to produce. They want to be a comedian like me in 2 seconds. I go, they go, I said to a kid once, I want to be a comic. I'm 20. I go, have you done stand-up? Yeah. And he goes, I don't know. I'm thinking of quitting. It's not working. I go, how many times you done it? He goes, 4 times. I go, you're thinking of quitting? Thinking of quitting? 4 times? He goes, yeah, I just, it's getting too long. It's getting too long. I go to, he goes, yeah, really, I mean, I said, what do you think, what do you expect me to say? In one time, I was Richard Pryor? What are you talking about? And I go, yeah, it's unbelievable.
I feel like I only had this kernel of an idea in like the last year of my life. I realized, like, you referenced the time machine idea a few minutes ago. Right. I think now, like, if you and I could go way back to the beginning, in that first moment where we go, I want to be in stupid show business.
Right.
Like, what's the first thing that we would say to ourselves? And I came up with the answer, and you nailed it. Like, the answer is, it's gonna take a lot longer than you think it's gonna take.
No, right, exactly. I want to tell these kids. I go, guys. I felt like saying, shaking the kid and going, dude, 4 times is like you're not even born yet. You're not. You know what I mean? You're not even. And by the way, the time machine thing, the way I wanted to use it, coming back, I hope they're not really hardcore at customs because I'm gonna bring a lot of blow on the way back to through the time machine. When you go back from 8 years old to 22, I hope there's not good security. What do you bring it? Well, you're coming from 1991. What was your purpose there? But I was just a pleasure. Okay. When you go back into 2016, what, you bringing anything or declaring nothing? No. Okay. What's in the bag? That's a bunch of Bay City Rollers albums. That's a 1973 New York Mets helmet. I tried. Now I'm going to cyber jail. Time machine jail.
That is so funny.
Well, I mean, I just thought of it now. I think I got to stand up. Dan, record that. But stuff doesn't happen fucking immediately. And then they see people like the Kardashians who just woke up one day and, like you had to work 5 years. You had to work 5 years to get famous. Howard Stern. I said, watch Howard's movie. It took forever. Watch mine. Watch this. Watch the. Basically, and Kim, the hero of this generation, not 5 years. In the time it took to blow a rapper, she got famous.
You'll love this story. I'll tell you the fastest version of one of my most painful Les Moonves stories. Okay, I'm the president of CBS. Howard announces that he's quitting.
By the way, guys, listen to that real quick. What did he just say? We're talking about a guy who was sleeping on the gutter. Listen, this is how far he got. So this is a legit guess. He goes,
This is it, though.
I was the president of CBS.
Moonves goes, what are we going to do? We got to replace him. How are we going to figure it out? What's the answer? What are we going to... I just hired Katie Couric. I'm a genius. She's going to do the news, right? So I have to explain to him what and Howard knows, which is it took Howard 20 years to become the king of all media.
Absolutely.
It didn't take 20 seconds to build the most loyal audience in the history of broadcasting. Right. And Moonves wants the ratings in about a week. So I look at him, and he's literally doing like the finger. He's almost poking me in the chest with the finger. and I say, in about 24 months, maybe we could get X percentage of Howard's audience and Howard's money. And in about 20 years, maybe, but probably not.
Oh, that's hilarious. See, you were savvy. You got it. Rob. Like again, I went through movies and television. I saw TV executives, movie executives. I got to the Stern Show, and I said, "Well, shit, I'm going to see the best of the best radio executives." I want to let people know you are the exception, because radio executives might be the dumbest group of people. The least, I mean, talk about how they just got lucky. And you're right, Howard was a build, like Howard, he was touched by the radio gods, Howard. Like one time a guy on the George Washington Bridge at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday wants to jump. The cops are begging him. It's big news.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Big news story. Howard been on for 5 years at the time. The guy, he says to the guy, "What can we do?" He goes, "I want to talk on the air to Howard Stern." Okay, if you could, the greatest salesman in the world couldn't buy enough great advertising to cover that guy saying that. It's worth $1 billion. Howard gets on the phone with him and talks him off the fucking ledge on the air. That is like, come on, man. I mean, that doesn't happen overnight. And that guy said that, and forget it. The sales department's like, we're going to stop calling because there's no amount of advertising. You can't pay for that. And he talks the guy off the ledge. I think the guy shot himself in the head a week later. But and you know why?
Of course you would go.
Howard wasn't available. Scott Shannon was the only one around. He was on the Chrysler Building, and he talked to Scott Shannon for 2 seconds. He said to the cop, "Give me your gun."
Funniest guy about.
Tell the guy who talked to Scott Shannon for 3 seconds on the Chrysler Building on top. He said, "Officer, give me your gun." Hey, you want to blow the 5 o'clock whistle with us? We're coming in on this all request hour. What do you want to hear? We got Britney Spears. We got Britney Spears. His first album is dropping. You know what else is dropping? Me. I'm dropping, Scott. You grew up in the Marzi projects. Nothing's dropping. The record's coming out. Again, stuff like that. Again, you talking to you for 5 seconds. You could tell you just because you're affable. You're not trying to be something you're not. You're just a good guy, and you seem smart. You seem smart. And you got to get it. And again, these kids don't know time. You feel like shit. You're gonna have to wait, man. Just learn stuff. Try to learn.
I figured one other thing out. We've done original online comedy series for 10 years. It took me 10 years to figure this one out. The person who makes their first online video this afternoon thinks that all three things are going to hopefully happen. They think they might happen, and they think they're hopefully all going to happen. One, the video is going to be fucking awesome. Two, it's going to get a zillion views on the YouTube. And then 3, they're going to get this money that comes in like royalty checks because they made a popular video.
Yep, unbelievable.
So it took me 10 years to be able to boil it all down and say to somebody who's just started this afternoon making videos that 3 things are going to happen. Thing 1, you're going to get unbelievably excellent at making videos. That's the part that's going to take a really long time. And then thing 2, you're going to build up an audience that's at least big enough to where there's people who really, really, really are loyal to you.
Right.
They connect to you. They tweet at you. You tweet back at them, even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. They care about you. And then eventually thing 3 happens where they're going to pay, $6 or $7 a month to back you for what you want to do. In this case, a podcast. So I feel like that's the new way to succeed. And then only 1 or 2 people get to be Howard Stern and Lady Gaga and a few others. Right. But for everybody else, it's like, you know what? You have to actually become great at something and then have 10 people that really give a shit,
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it really...
I'll give you. I'm an example of it, Rob. Like I'm one of the few. I charge $7 a month for my podcast, and they said you're not going to get.
I didn't pick that number by accident.
Well, no, you see that's why you're great at what you do. And going into this, a bunch of people said, "Look, Art, you're not going to get one person because people, they don't want to pay a quarter a day even for anything. It's just the fact. It doesn't matter how cheap it is. It's the fact you're making them pay for something." Another guy who was savvy said, "You know what, Art? Try it because you could always go back to the old thing because you have 8.5 years on Stern and that audience loves you. Maybe you'll get enough people to make a living." And that's exactly what I have. I have enough people to where I make a very good living. It's a decent, it's a business, and I haven't done any advertising. And in a year, it's grown because we're doing well. And this is the thing I'm best at. If truth be told, in show business, talking on the radio, and I'm getting a business. And I hate when people who have a podcast with 24-year-old kids, "Oh, God, you just walk in overnight and you get all this money. I've been doing a podcast for 6 months." Dude, I was on Stern for 8.5 years. That's why I'm doing it. I didn't wake up today and go, "Hey, brother, let's buy some microphones." I said, I was on the Howard Stern show for 8 years. That's where I put my time in. That's the real, that's my dues I'm paying. I mean, honestly, I was making $900,000 a year paying my dues, but that's besides. We'll stay away from that.
Where's my harmonica? Hold on, I'm looking for my harmonica.
But that's exactly why. But these people don't know. Like, in other words, when the day Martin Scorsese started shooting Goodfellas probably was not 7 days after he said, "Yeah, maybe I'll make movies." You get good at something, and oh man, the story you just told, the way a kid saying 3 things are going to happen, the video's going to be good. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of. Okay, Ron Jaworski used to get killed by Lawrence Taylor. The guy Lawrence Taylor destroyed the most was Ron Jaworski. And Jaworski is so funny. You were being funny like him and telling that story, listening to a kid brag a little bit. It's not going to come true. Jaworski gets his leg broken in 3 places by a young Lawrence Taylor who sacks him. And he comes back, and finally he's back in the game. And they're playing the Giants after 6 months on the bench from the broken leg. The new offensive coordinator for the Eagles is a young guy, new coach. And he draws up a play, and Jaworski says, wait, one second. Who's going to block Lawrence Taylor? And the guy goes, "The halfback will cover him." Okay, and George says, whoa. What? Who? He goes, the halfback's going to block Lawrence Taylor. And Jaworski goes, "No, he's not." He goes, "Did you watch the tape?" He goes, "Well, believe me, I drew these plays up. We figured out how to beat Taylor." He goes, "You did? Okay, all right, fine." So Jaworski goes out. The first play, Lawrence Taylor jumps over the halfback and sacks Roger. The second play, Taylor pushes the halfback into Jaworski and sacks him. The third play, he grabs the halfback and uses him to hit Jaworski. Like a battering ram, and sacks him. And Jaworski comes back with his ankles out, and he goes, "I'll be back in 3 months. Try to draw something else." I'll be in the hospital. While I'm in the hospital for 3 months, try to think of someone else other than the halfback to pick him up. The halfback has a concussion from Lawrence Taylor using him as a hammer to hit me. Oh my God, Jaworski telling that story. I reminded me of you, maybe looking at this kid going, "The video's going to be great." And it's gonna be, who's going to block up the halfback? No, he's not. And Taylor again. You're in the training room, and again, the Kardashians got famous quick for doing nothing. That's the other thing they don't want to do, Rob, is work, hard work. They don't want to do that either. In that 5 years, what did you do? You probably were a gopher. You did stuff you don't want to do, right?
I mean, it's the idea of working 18 or 20 hours a day is the way certain people look at the world. But the way I figured it out at the youngest age was I can't do some version of a straight job. I can't do it. Right. So if I have to do, like you said, the idea is like I'm going to be as close to comedy as I possibly can.
Right.
Or I'm going to be as close to rock and roll as I possibly can. Then somewhere in all the bad shit that I learned from my mother and father, there was this one or two other ideas that said it doesn't come from the sky or from wishing. You have to work it.
Right.
You have to just pound your version of pavement, whatever it is.
Absolutely. And you're right. If something you love doing and you're successful at that is at the end of the rainbow, it makes it easier. Like I was like, you know what? I'll do this shit job. If at the end of the rainbow I might be a comedian or I might be the president of CBS or whatever, but it's tough to do it, especially for people like you and I, or maybe people a little creative and want to do something else that's not normal. It's tough to do it if at the end of the rainbow, you're branch manager of an insurance company in Iowa. But people do that too. The first thing you say in this, the first part of your review is you start off with a question: how much? And I agree with this too. How much must Scorsese and Jagger hate radio, not DJs, radio, all of radio, to create the Dice Clay character in this? Dice plays an unbelievable. He's great in it, by the way. Dice, I got to give him props.
No, he is.
Yeah, he's playing Dice, but that's hard to do. It's great acting. He's playing a radio DJ who's just the most obnoxious. An owner of radio stations that they got to kiss his ass to get the records played. Obnoxious, loud guy. Dice on coke, basically. That's what we and explain what you mean by that. Like, obviously, that guy is a character based on people they know, and that guy's represented radio. So they hate radio, in your opinion.
Well, I mean, look, I purposely waited 24 hours to write this write-up because I felt like I didn't want to do what a lot of people were doing, was write about this before it came out and ruin it for people.
Right.
So let's assume that if you're listening to the podcast and you've made it this far, you've seen the 2-hour premiere of Vinyl.
We're definitely going to assume that, by the way, because we're going to talk about the ending and everything. So people assume they've heard.
So here's Andrew Dice Clay playing like Jabba the radio asshole. I mean, this guy is like, like this reprehensible character.
Awful.
That, is written like such a monster that the only way they can resolve the fact that he's the most raging asshole of all time is to bludgeon him to death. to turn his brains into, Smucker's strawberry jam.
Wow, it's interesting you use that as and describing the character, the best way to put it is, imagine if I went to Mardi Gras with nothing but an 8-ball and a silk robe. You're right. You looked at this. You're a smart guy watching this. In other words, they're bludgeoning radio. Like they
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Only because I look, because I'm so obsessed with the greatest legends of all time.
Right.
I've worked with both of these guys, and I know who they are and what they're made of. There aren't two people in the world that respect and love rock and roll, but even most importantly, its origin in the blues, than Martin Scorsese and Mick Jagger.
Absolutely.
And they proved it with everything they've ever done.
Yep.
Okay, they talk about working long hours. I mean, I listened to your interview, by the way, with Buddy Guy, which was just like the greatest love letter of all time. I mean, that was it was beautiful, to be able to have that guy for whatever it was like 20 minutes. Every second of it was amazing because you hit the nail on the head. There's a guy who's responsible for getting concepts like Jimi Hendrix and the Rolling Stones into our brains,
right?
But we wouldn't have known it had people like Mick Jagger and Martin Scorsese not made sure that you and I know who Buddy Guy is.
Right, and Jagger and Richards were nice enough to be nice to. By the way, that's the nicest compliment you could give me. And this is more impressive, not to toot my own horn. Danny had told me who he was just 5 minutes before the interview. I was preparing for a Jasmine guy from a different world.
This guy owns some club in Chicago.
You're right, but that's a great point. Like Jagger, a thing I didn't mention is the story where Keith Richards goes to Chess Records for the first time, meets Muddy Waters, who is not recording; he's painting the ceiling. And
Yes.
and these guys, the Jagger and Richards, were nice enough to embrace these guys and say, no, look, we did do this, we did take your music, and now we want to introduce you now. In other words, you loved our 2 albums. These are the people who created it, and that's an important part of music, Buddy Guy's story, because they could have, with the racism back then, they could have just said, no, we're not mentioning them at all. We're taking credit,
Yeah, so if you watch Vinyl, when they literally destroy the brains in a Sopranos takedown of the guy who's positioned to be one of the most powerful guys in all of radio,
right.
I couldn't not read between those lines and say that's how pissed these guys must be
right.
about how sad the concept of freeform radio ended up in the States. That was, I think, a statement. That's the way I saw it.
Well, no, you know why? You're very perceptive in thinking that. And I happen to agree, because these are guys, you're right. These are guys, if you listen to Jagger's lyrics and you watch Scorsese's movies, these guys don't do anything that doesn't have a purpose. There's very rarely does something happen in the movie that doesn't say something, and usually, like with great art, there's a hidden meaning in it. And absolutely, if you look at Dice as sort of a metaphor for radio, the way they kill him is extra vicious. It's like it's like, wow, we hate you that much. And he plays a guy that basically is loud. He's coked up, obviously womanizing asshole, and loud. And by the way Cannavale looks at him in that scene, if anyone's ever been in a room with 50 people doing coke and you're the 51st people and you're not doing coke, the conversation is terrible. You can't have a conversation with a guy on coke and you're not. You want to throw them out the window. And so Cannavale's looking at him like, wow, he's really seeing, because he's sober and he's seeing how much of an asshole he is. And he's saying, you got to pay me. You want, it's not about art. It's not about what's good. You got to pay me. You want your shit on my radio station. And they clearly live that, guys like Jagger, and you did as well.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, I never saw payola. Nobody walked into my studio and put cash money down on the turntable. I didn't see that. I really, I think that was, you and I read the books and we saw the movies. I think that was more like a point of the 50s,
Alan Freed and stuff like that,
than it was, at least I didn't see it in the 70s.
But it was done in different ways. It was done in different ways, like a more corporate way.
It was different ways.
Yeah,
it was like, hey, Artie, would you like to get on a plane with me right now
right.
in New Jersey or perhaps in New York airport? We're going to fly to L.A. We're going to pick you up in a van. We're going to drive you up to a secret location in the Hollywood Hills. Then we're going to switch to another van. This is a true story, I'm telling you.
That's great.
Then we're going to go to a house in Encino, the one that burned down that used to be Tom Petty's house. Because Tom is going to personally play you and about 20 other DJs his new album to see what you guys think. But here's what happened. You were put on a plane, you were put in 2 vans, you were driven to Tom Petty's house, and you were given more cocaine than you ever could imagine, And the fact of the matter was that Southern Accents was a great album, but if you do the math, it's probable that every single one of us that was in that house that night added that record the following Tuesday.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And played it.
Exactly.
So a lot of it did happen, but I was surprised by the violence, because that's where I felt like, oh, now it's Goodfellas. Now it's The Sopranos.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's
okay, we're going to get to that too. You're so right, because then it becomes almost a hacky, unoriginal TV movie almost, where now mob guys come in and a kid gets beat up. And when you say it missed the mark, by the way, that's unbelievable. And the amount of cocaine it must take to think Southern Accents is as good as Damn the Torpedo. Okay, so right now we go, and so that's what they think about radio, which is a great observation. Now we go into the fact that the storyline where he's going back and forth, he clearly has guilt about this young black artist who he worked for Morris Levy, and he promises his kid will be all right, and then a deal with the mafia, they're financing the whole thing, and Levy's a gambler. They got to sell the company, and Cannavale tries to take the black kid, and he promised him, and he can't because the mob guy likes him. And what I'm getting from what you said is, it's like a misdirection. The real bad guys who suck the creativity out of it were these radio consultants. The mob guys is almost like an unoriginal way to go with it, and you can't understand why. Am I correct in that?
I think that's true to a point. I mean, look. Let's say one thing about this, and I'll play a game with you in about 30 seconds when I get to this thought.
Okay.
Let's say one thing. This is a fictionalized rock and roll, drama, largely, right? So they're smarter guys than us who know what it's going to take first to convince HBO to give them however much money they gave them.
Right.
So I couldn't stop thinking about that. Like every time. I mean, I worked with Martin Scorsese for 1 year of my life. And ever since that year, I always realized that, when he comes up with an idea for a movie, he doesn't open his own personal checkbook and say, I'm going to make my next film.
Yeah, he'd be homeless.
He's got to do the same thing that the three of us have to do.
Right.
He has to go knock on somebody's door and say, okay, I got this thing.
Well, first of all, what'd you work with him on, real quick, Rob?
So in 2002, 2003, if you look it up on the Google, there's an entire project called Martin Scorsese Presents the Blues. That's the long official title of it. What it was 7 feature-length documentary films that were made. They aired 7 nights in a row on PBS.
Yes, I remember that. Yep.
So Scorsese was the director of one of the films. Clint Eastwood was the director of one of the films. And a guy who's become, one of my greatest heroes and longest friends and is a neighbor who lives down the street in New Jersey is a guy named Alex Gibney.
Oh,
and
yeah, amazing guy. Yep. Did he do the 30 for 30 on the Cubs guy, right?
Yes,
he did.
Yes.
30 for 30.
Yes.
He just did the Scientology thing, right?
Going clear.
Going clear.
Going clear. The Scientology. I mean, look up Alex's movies; it's incredible. But in 02, 03, in that time period, he hired me for basically 3 jobs on the Scorsese project. One job was I'm going to be his friend and make sure he doesn't die of a coronary, because he had to do, imagine doing 7 movies all at once.
I can't. First of all, I get a guy gets hired like that with me, no matter what I get now. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then I got to make the DVDs. I produced the DVDs not just for Scorsese, but for all these amazing directors. Like a guy named Wim Wenders is one of my favorite directors ever. So I got to put all the DVDs together, and then we made 26 CD soundtracks for Scorsese. The soundtracks had 2 things going on. On the one hand, guys that made the original blues songs whose families have been ripped off since the day they were born.
Yeah.
We made sure that all of those songs were licensed at what was called a favored nation royalty rate.
Right.
So they could get real money given back to the families for the first time in a while.
Good for you, man. That's one of the most important things you could do, man, because those guys, think how bad they were ripped off. Absolutely.
Their whole lives.
Yeah,
and then we got 75 current artists to cover the original blues songs, and then all of that music became the soundtracks to each of the 7 movies. So again, if you go on iTunes or something, there's 26 CD soundtracks to the blues. It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's an awesome project.
What a project! I mean, Scorsese's use of music in films, the soundtracks in his movies, man. Obviously, Give Me Shelter with the Stones has become sort of hacky now to use in a picture, but Scorsese originated it. Back to Who's That Knocking on My Door with the Keitel, Jumpin' Jack Flash is in it. It's like a 2-year-old song. And
that's right.
The best ever is in Goodfellas, after the Lufthansa heist, when Maury keeps bugging De Niro for the money, and De Niro's at the bar as Jimmy Burke, and this is factual because it's in the documentaries about it. Jimmy, played by De Niro at that point, decides to kill everybody. I'm not going to pay any of them. I'll give Henry Hill a little cut, and everyone else,
Right.
oh, I owe money to. I'm not going to pay the money. I'm going to kill them. When De Niro's character, Jimmy Burke, has that epiphany, the camera slowly goes to his face, smoking a cigarette at the bar with a silk suit, and the song that comes up is Sunshine on My Love by Cream. That opening guitar riff has nothing to do with those guys. They didn't like Cream. They wouldn't know it, but it's fucking perfect for him making that decision. And
Yep.
that's the way Scorsese used music. And so when you just said it's an unbelievable project, I can't wait to go back and look at that, man.
So now get back to vinyl.
Right, go right now, vinyl, yeah.
Explain to me how the money of HBO, the power of Mick Jagger, and the power of Martin Scorsese
That's a great point. Yep.
don't get to clear only authentic music for the soundtrack.
Yeah.
On the one hand, the soundtrack in the 2-hour pilot is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
They play, rock, blues, not country, R&B, disco,
Right, I know.
tons of punk,
Yep.
right? And a lot of it is legit. It's the real music that was recorded. But then every once in a while, they're playing basically fake sound-alike,
Terrible.
cheesy versions
Yep.
of music. Like, why? I don't get it.
It's a
Like
TV
that-
movie at that point. At that point, it becomes a bad TV movie. You could not be more right. And I know, the biggest offense is in the beginning when they go see Zeppelin. There's a storyline where they want to sign Zeppelin.
That's the worst of it.
They're trying to play
Yeah.
what's clearly rock and roll. Their amazing song, rock and roll.
And
It's
they
a bad
fake it
version
by
of
like
it.
3 notes.
Yeah.
By 3 notes, they fake it. Yeah. So that just shocks me because again, let's make believe that there's some unbelievable fight and, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant won't give Mick Jagger the clearance or whatever must have actually happened, right?
Right.
But then you're a producer and you're sitting in the edit room and you go, I can't believe Zeppelin fucked us. How can we not have that song?
Yep.
You could have made like 5 other choices
Exactly.
instead of saying, let's make some elevator music version sound alike. I mean, it was just a lame choice. It was a really strange choice.
Now, this is probably why the last check I ever write will bounce. But at some point, I would have gone into my own money. If you like the art so much and you really are, if I'm Jagger, I go, you know what? The money I made on the Australian side of the tour this year, I got on me. I got it on me. I'm gonna play.
I can buy rock and roll.
I'm gonna buy rock and roll. Absolutely, man. I mean that is so right. There's some movies that, you know what, you go, if they didn't get these songs, you don't make the movie. Like, literally, it's that important. The movie Dazed and Confused, the director of that, an unbelievably talented guy whose name escapes me right now. But
Linklater.
Okay, Linklater.
Linklater,
Richard
yeah.
Linklater. He talks about how he got clearance to all those songs in that movie because without clearance, you can't make the movie. He doesn't have the budget. Everyone did him a favor. But the movie's called Dazed and Confused. He wants it for the opening scene. Plant says no. Page, exactly what you just described happened. Page and Plant get in a fight. Page says yes. Plant says no. The lawyer for Plant, at one point, Linklater is arguing with him on the phone, and the lawyer for Plant says, well, is the song that important to the movie? And Linklater says, do you have the script there? And he goes, yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't looked at it. I'm just saying.
Read the first page.
He goes, look at the title. You tell me, asshole.
So I can't let you go without playing this game. Okay, I'm going to throw this game at you.
Go ahead.
You invited me on, and I started thinking about something. I started thinking, like, all right, so we obviously care about vinyl enough to spend all this time thinking about it,
Right.
talking about it, and figuring out where it soars. Which, by the way, Bobby Cannavale is amazing.
Great actor.
You know,
great actor.
and where it fails. So I started thinking right before you called me. I started thinking, wait a minute, what are the greatest fictionalized rock and roll movies? I'll start with
Okay.
This Is Spinal Tap, a comedy,
Yep.
but fictionalized, right?
Yeah, that's
And
hard
then
to
I'll
beat,
throw
man.
in-
That's hard to beat.
Then I'll throw in High Fidelity, and then maybe Almost Famous. Now name some others.
Okay. First of all, this is Spinal Tap and Almost Famous. I'm with you on. I'll try to get others. High Fidelity, well done. And by the way, the only movie I believe Bruce Springsteen ever appears in. Like John Cusack asked.
Oh shit, that's amazing.
Yeah, John Cusack asked Springsteen to do him a favor.
That's amazing, and he answers him.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine that's the one he says yes to? A good movie.
I forgot about that.
I was up for that, by the way. You know, I was supposed to be Jack Black.
I would have cast you.
Well, listen, I got to. Well, then you know what? You're more nice than smart at this point. No, I appreciate you saying that, but when he got the part, I went to the last fucking audition, and it was between me and Jack Black. He got it, and he wasn't. You know, people didn't know how great he was at this point, and I got mad. Then I watched it, and I said to my agent, I said, you know what? I don't think I could have done that. He steals the movie, and so High Fidelity, a good choice. I don't know if it's up there with Almost Famous and Spinal Tap is just a special film. Okay, I'm going to say, wow, that's a great question.
Because I had a really hard time with this. I'm thinking, you know, like, because everything that comes to mind is a documentary or a performance movie, like, you know, anything Bob Dylan's ever done, the greatest. The Filth and the Fury, the Sex Pistols,
all
amazing.
Documentaries. Yeah, all documentaries.
But they're documentaries. The Last Waltz, amazing. It Might Get Loud, amazing.
Yeah.
But then I keep thinking, okay, who has dramatized it like Scorsese and Mick Jagger just did?
Well, first of all, you brought up documentaries. I'll say this. My favorite, by far, rock documentary to me is "Gimme Shelter" because of the end with Altamont. You see that a Hell's Angels stabs a guy 2 feet from Mick Jagger singing "Under My Thumb," 2 feet, and Jagger is the one who has to tell Keith Richards to stop playing the guitar.
I heard your podcast.
Okay, that's unbelievable.
I heard your podcast.
Do you think you get into music?
Oh my God, that was so funny.
First degree murder. First degree murder is happening. There's a guy in an L-cat telling Jagger to stop talking from the Hells Angels, 2 feet from Richards, and the only time he stops is he goes, Keith, stop. That's either heroin or being into music. I think it's both. Okay.
I got one.
I got one too, but go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Commitments. Great movie.
Never saw that, but I know the Irish Band.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good movie.
I'll give you one you're going to laugh at, but really think about it because of the lead performance. The Rose.
Oh, you know, I mean, it's buried in the back of my diseased brain, but maybe. I don't know.
There's a scene where she's clearly playing a takeoff of Janis Joplin, Bette Midler. And try to forget the First Wives Club and everything else. Like Bette Midler became a billionaire with. But when she was young, she was a real star with an interesting voice. And she plays a Joplin character, more country, who's on the road. And there's a scene where she's all drugged up in a telephone booth at the end. And she's begging this guy to not to leave her, and she slowly cries and goes to the bottom of the telephone booth. And I guess if you're under 30, Google telephone booth, you kids. So it's a 2-hour 2-hour documentary on that. But I'm telling you, you took Almost Famous and Spinal Tap. I got to go with The Rose because of her performance. It really makes you go. Then you see a documentary about Janis Joplin. She's accurate. It's great. She's great in it, and I think she was nominated.
I'm going to be dreaming about Artie Lang and Bette Midler from now on.
Well, I never do, so go ahead. And you know what? What about there's a movie Rush with that Greg Allman's actually in. It's more about the drug part of it, but it's on the outside.
Oh, a friend of mine produced that movie.
Yeah.
That's a really cool movie.
It is. You know,
hey, Dan knows this lady. Karen Murphy produced Rush.
Oh, okay.
And guess what else Karen Murphy produced? Here comes our reason to exist. This is Spinal Tap.
That's a great one because of how unique it is. But there's a movie called American Hot Wax about Alan Freed.
That's a great movie.
Yeah,
that's a great movie.
1970, and again the outskirts of it, and Hail Hail Rock and Roll, another documentary, a concert film with Chuck Berry. But so overall, by the way, that's an amazing question. And we rewatched The Rose, and it ain't Almost Famous, but so real quick, so at the end you say I had the same reaction. You're scratching your head about vinyl, and you don't know why you want to see it again. I'm the same exact way. Ultimately, is this a thumbs up, a thumbs down for you? It's an amazing piece of work. It's just 2 hours. It's like a film for a pilot.
You know, if I'm forced to be this sort of critic, which I'm not, but it's your show, I have to say thumbs down only because we want it to be so great.
Yes.
And the anticipation when you hear Mick Jagger, Martin Scorsese, and we didn't even talk about Terrence Winter, who's the third guy,
Right. Wow, yeah.
Making this. And you think of all the greatest stuff they've ever done, and then you wonder, why, get back to, a high-fidelity idea for 1 second. This is the last thing.
Sure, go ahead.
Is that we are music nerds, right?
Absolutely.
We are ultimate music nerds. So I think what's pushing some of the nerds away is the idea that it would become this sort of formulaic Martin Scorsese thing instead of something that surprises you and says, oh, my God, this is the greatest rock and roll show ever.
You're right.
I just don't see people coming away saying that,
They don't. And I agree with you. And you're right. You tell me that Jagger and Scorsese are producing a film about, record business in the 70s with Bobby Cannavale as the lead, and, Jagger's kid is going to play one of the guys, and blah, blah, blah. You better also tell me they bought the rights to Rock and Roll by Zeppelin. You're so right about the music, man. That nails it on the head. When you hear that rock and roll and all the other stuff, it's like, this is a bad TV film. I mean, come on, guys.
We didn't mention Olivia Wilde. I mean, I really do think the two lead actors, both Bobby and Olivia, they're excellent.
She's stunning. She's stunning.
You've been hired 1 million times to work in somebody else's project, right? So if they call you up and you're either Olivia Wilde or Bobby Cannavale, and they go, here's your job, or, I love when Howard used to always say, do your job. That was my favorite.
Absolutely,
yeah. Right? So they were hired for this movie, and this is a story that was written, to bring out a certain view of rock and roll in 1973. I think they did a perfect job. There's a lot of things about it that
they nailed it. Yeah. They nailed the casting, absolutely. But the other stuff, what you're saying is, I agree. The other stuff that's a negative or too big a negative, and it actually cancels that out. If you have a couple minutes, I can't let you go without your Springsteen situation in the 70s. You were one of the first guys to really get him, and and if you could talk, do you have a couple of minutes, or you got to go?
Oh God, are you kidding?
You said one last thing.
It's amazing. It's so much fun to talk music with you. It's awesome.
Well, Rob, believe me, Danny told me about this. I go, dude, that's the perfect guy to talk to. So it's a podcast. We can do whatever the hell we want. I don't have to do a Steven. I don't even have to do a live Steven Singer spot. Okay, two things. The Springsteen thing in the 70s. Danny told me briefly, supposedly you were a guy who kind of got him when he was younger when other people didn't, and you were sort of responsible for a little bit about him, making it to another level. Is that true, and what happened with that?
Totally true on part one, totally not true on part two.
I got a feeling you're being humble.
Part one is, the minute I first heard that guy at a young age, I realized, because I grew up a Dylan fan,
right.
And the minute I heard the first, notes of Bruce Springsteen, I did 100% say, this guy's talking to me, but I can't take any credit for.
Right. No,
I met him, early on, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I mean, I literally made sure to get a job at the record company so that I could meet the guy, and I'm writing a book right now about the idea of working with your heroes and your heroines, and I finished the chapter on Springsteen, which actually I put it out already. It's
I can't wait to read that, because talk about a guy I can relate to. Yeah, I can relate to that.
The fact that he's out on the river tour.
Right.
Now is kind of a coincidence, because I wanted to write the chapter about working with him and meeting him on the first river tour. So I met him 3 nights after John Lennon was murdered.
Wow!
And I get backstage, and this is it. This is the moment I've been building up to. That how am I not going to come across like some stupid kid, and what am I going to say? And this is my hero, and oh shit! But because I was a radio guy, I had heard what ended up being the last interview that John Lennon had ever given, and he gave it. It was about a 3-hour interview,
right?
And and it was the day that he died. The day that he was killed.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. So they asked him. You've heard the stories a million times, but Lennon talked about I hung the guitar up on my wall for 5 years. I didn't play any music. I didn't,
Right.
I baked bread. I was taking care of my son. I was, so then he's getting ready to make Double Fantasy, and the story that he tells is that he sent his assistant out to go to, whatever the record store was at the time and buy him everything. So that he could start listening to what was going on. And, he's going in the studio, he wants a frame of reference. So in what ends up being the last ever Lennon interview, he talks about the fact that Hungry Heart came out as a single about, I think it was, I'll have to look it up again, but it was right before the single from Double Fantasy, which is, just like starting over.
Right.
So Lennon says that of all the stuff he went out and listened to, one of the songs that spoke to him the most was Hungry Heart. So now I'm backstage,
wow.
and Lennon's just been killed, and I'm meeting my hero, and John Landau goes, Rob, this is Bruce. Bruce is Rob Barnett. And I take like the wildest risk, and I just decide, you know what, I bet that Bruce Springsteen is a little too busy to have known that John Lennon just said this about him the day he was killed. And I start telling the story, and Landau is sending me these vibes like, shut up, you stupid idiot. Like, how could you be saying this? Like, this is not, how could you be doing this? And Bruce, I'm sure you've met him, like, he's really shy. Like, he always looks away.
It's unbelievable.
He's shy.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking to a guy. This is my hero. I feel like I'm talking to a kid I went to high school with who's telling me what it was like when he managed the Home Depot once.
Yeah. So I, as quickly as I possibly can, I tell him what John Lennon said about him. And I end it as quickly as I can because I know I'm sort of in trouble. I shouldn't have done it. And I say something like, but I thought you would want to know that. And he just looks up and he puts his arms on my shoulders and he goes, thank you for telling me that. And it blew my mind.
That's amazing.
Because I felt like he had to know that, like, that his brand new song was one of the last things that like touched John Lennon in the heart. It was an amazing thing.
It's amazingly, because you're right, because I relate to that. First of all, I got to get this book because no one could relate to him more. I got a chance to work with Howard, and I talked to Bruce, and Bruce called me on the phone. It's sort of a famous story that the podcast people know about, when I was down and out, and talked to me about getting off heroin, about that he never did it, but related stories about Neil Young, and I'm like, talk about surreal. I was 16 when Born in the USA came out, and he's on the phone. I say, Ma, I love you to death, but the greatest thing you ever said to me was Bruce Springsteen's on the phone. And as I took the phone, you'll love this, Rob, about a generation ago, I got real pale. She said, Bruce Springsteen's on the phone. She said it like she was saying, my buddy Mike wants to go play stickball when we were 14. And she put her hand over the thing, and I said, wow. And she goes, the music guy? Oh, no, she said, the singer? I said, no, he's from the DMV. I lost my license. Yeah, no. So, he talked to me for an hour. An hour and 20 minutes, Bruce Springsteen talked to me and let me ask him about music and everything. And, the most sincere thing, he knew I was a fan. He knew it would mean something to me. And on a real smaller scale, if a fan of Stern, because they're intense, wants to talk to me and say, look, kid just the other day said, I'm sick, I'd love to talk to you, just I may be out in a year, I'm down and out. I go, that's fine with me, man. I got no problem with it, because Springsteen takes out time. The first thing he said to me was, are you taking care of yourself, man? You always got to make sure you shave. You think that's what you're doing. Make sure you get up and you shave, because you feel alive when you shave.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Amazing. So I got to get this book. I'll plug the hell out of it. I can't wait. I worked with Howard. Letterman was a hero of mine, and I'm not saying this to brag, because I'm very, very humble. I know I'm very lucky. But there were, in one day, I did Stern in the morning, Letterman at night, and my mother came to see me play Carnegie Hall. Believe me, if you knew me in 1988, the odds were not good for me doing that. So that's such a great. That story, Rob. Let me ask you something. When you tell that story to somebody who clearly doesn't get it, doesn't get how important that is. Does it depress you? Because when I tell someone the Springsteen story, even if they're not a fan, if they're not savvy enough to see how much it meant to me, and they kind of go, "That's great. I need snow tires. Can you take me to the farm?" I'm sure it happens to all of us. When you tell someone that story and they don't really get it, does it? You know what
I think though. This is what I think. The guy who defines the greatest place you can be as an artist is Bob Dylan for me, for one reason and one reason alone.
Right.
And it's not about arrogance. It's about commitment to figuring out how to be an artist for the sake of being an artist.
Yep.
Imagine, and I can never imagine this, and I know that you can probably never imagine this either. Imagine being an artist where the definition of how good it is can only come from you and not from another person.
That's a great point.
That's the ultimate.
Yep.
That's the ultimate, right? Because then you never go crazy like the rest of us do. Yeah. So I feel like the second level is if you know what you like and you like what you like, and I'll go back to when we were talking earlier and say, if only 10 people got that, like you and I just got it,
yeah,
then those are your friends. That's the validation, right?
That's a good point. You're so right. Absolutely. That's a good point too.
And if everybody else doesn't get it, then you know what? It's a big world, and those are not your friends.
Yeah.
But like when I talk to Dan Pilato about radio, it's like we served in Vietnam together. Like we know
right.
what we know in a way that only two veterans of a never-ending land war in Asia can know.
Man, there's a lot of truth and a lot of life in what you just said. Those are your friends, absolutely. Again, if only 4 people appreciate my Springsteen story, you know what? You realize I got 4 friends. Big deal. People can do a lot worse. And that's the thing about like hot women. Like no hot women want to sleep with me. If I ever find one hot woman who wants to sleep with me, I'm going to call her my wife. Or the girl I stalk to be my wife. There's so much truth in what you just said. You call those people your friends. That's great, Rob. What are you doing being an executive? You should have wrote songs. The other thing is the Stones. The story about the Stones, where you supposedly were the reason. Now, I'm thinking it's this incident. I have a feeling it's not. In 1981, after a big gig in Chicago, they played, an arena stadium. They went to go to Muddy Waters Club downtown, and they got on stage.
I watch that video all the time.
Okay,
yep.
Unbelievable video to see the dynamic. You see Richard on stage. Richard's on stage with Muddy Waters. But you have
my favorite part is how they get on that stage. They walk over the table.
That's Keith Richards. That's the Stones. You know what I mean? There's so many asshole bands who go, we can't do that. That's bad for our image, right? What if we trip? So Keith Richards does it with a cigarette in his mouth, smoke in his eyes, and a bunch of heroin in him.
And this is pretty findable on YouTube. So anybody that's listening, you got to put in like Muddy Waters, 1981, Chicago, Rolling Stones, something like that. And you see all of it. It's unbelievable. And that's unbelievable.
Checkerboard Lounge is the name of the club, and
that's right.
As according to Dan, the neighborhood was not exactly where you'd see a guy in a cardigan sweater with a tennis racket.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. It's so good,
and it's amazing. So, but you convinced the Stones to go to a small club too? Is there a story like that?
Yeah, no. In the late 70s. They did, a surprise club gig. There was a bootleg that a lot of Stones fans loved in the 70s. It's funny, the Stones did a bootleg from there, and Elvis Costello did a bootleg. It was called Live at the El Macombo Club. This is like up in Canada.
Yep.
So I'm in rock radio. It's the late 70s. I know about that bootleg. I love that bootleg. I'm a Stones fanatic. And I've also written this chapter. I've only got about 4 chapters done for the book so far, but I got the Springsteen chapter done. I got a George Harrison chapter done. I wrote the Bowie chapter and put it out the day that Bowie's birthday happened.
Man.
And then, like the rest of the world, fell into shock, 48 hours later, because I wrote this thing called the David Bowie method. And then he died, but it broke my heart. But I wrote the Stones chapter first because in 1981, they released the Tattoo You album, which has Start Me Up on it.
Right.
And they're going to do a world tour like they always do. And it's a long story that I won't give you the ridiculously long version of. The short story is that I'm living about 20 minutes away from what becomes their secret hiding place in Massachusetts, where they're going to live. They lived on a farm, and the farm had a recording studio, and they're going to live there for, believe it or not, like I think it was 6 weeks, and rehearse with their families, and rehearse supposedly in secret, for their world tour.
Amazing.
And so somehow, pumping tons of alcohol into a guy at a bar one night, I found out that they were coming before they even came, and I knew the owner of the studio and the farm was a friend of mine. So I called the guy up and I said, "I know," and he said, "What do you know?" I said, "I know." He said, "What do you know?" He said,
"The guy's funny if the guy's gay." What do you mean? I do. You know. Oh wait, you know about the Stones? Oh, thank God.
Yeah, I go, "I know they're coming," and I said, "I'm going to make you a deal." I said, I'm a dropout, but I went to journalism school.
Right.
And it's my job as a journalist to go into the studio, go on the air, and tell my listeners that the Rolling Stones are moving into my backyard, or I'll keep it a secret, but you got to get me an interview with the Stones.
You're a good man.
So I was like just pulling some wild rabbit out of a hat. The guy, of course, then stopped taking my calls. The Stones move into his house, and I can't come up with a nicer word. I stalked Mick Jagger in a non-threatening way.
Right.
I got a tip that he was going to be at an airport. I went and hid out on the runway of an airport, a tiny little airport in Worcester, Mass. I interview him. I suggest to him in the interview that if they're there rehearsing, it might be a good idea to, maybe rehearse, in front of, fans in a club. And I make this insane suggestion, and then I went to a typewriter, and I typed up a proposal on paper. And
amazing.
I drove it out to the farm, and I figured out how to meet Bill Wyman. That was as close as I could get.
Hey, man, bass player's not bad.
Yeah, and I interviewed Bill for who at the time had a really strange solo album coming out. So I said, I need to talk to Bill about his French-titled solo album called
I love it.
Suisse and Rockstar.
I love it. I love Southern accents.
Yeah, so I interviewed Bill, and then at the end of the interview, I hand him 6 copies of this typed-out proposal called Secret Stones Club Gig. And that's the beginning of a long story which ends with me as a 21-year-old kid on stage at this little club in Worcester, Massachusetts, and my intro was, "Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot fucking believe this, the Rolling Stones."
Listen, man, that's just stuff like that. That's stories like that are. I don't feel like they happen anymore. Too much things fuck them up. I think of the Muddy Waters checkerboard thing. Now look, I don't want to sound like an old curmudgeon to young people, but isn't that story so much cooler knowing that some asshole from some publicity place or some municipal guy from that part of Chicago did not go up to Muddy Waters and say, "Listen, if they're definitely coming, you should tweet it." Muddy Waters trying to tweet something. Every tweet starts with just one letter being typed a million times. What the fuck? And then in the cadence, but you keeping that if you would have went up to that guy and said, "Look, show him your iPhone and say, look, show him a tweet that says the Stones are rehearsing in my backyard," and you're like, "If I don't get an interview, I'm pressing post, motherfucker." Someone would have fucked it up. In other words, nowadays there's too much shit known. It's someone would have found out, tweeted it, this, that, posted it on the internet. Even the old guy takes a picture. It's just a different time where private, great there's a romance to that story. It's not possible anymore because of how we're in it.
Well, wasn't it amazing? I think one of the reasons why, I mean, there's a million reasons why everybody just, got hit in the heart when David Bowie passed away.
Right.
But I think that one of the most powerful reasons was that 2 days before, he drops another album like a secret. You know what I mean? Like he put out that album called The Next Day, which I think it was maybe, if it wasn't a year ago, it was like less than 2 years ago, where no one had heard from him for something like 10 years because he had a heart attack.
Yeah.
And no one had heard from him. There were all these rumors. He did no interviews. I think he did that Comfortably Numb with David Gilmour was the last time anyone saw him perform, which was 2006. And then all of a sudden, like all these years later, with no pre-promotion, a record just comes out. That to me is pretty amazing.
It is. It's a guy who knows how to. He's a showman. He knows how to do something like that, right? He went out in style.
Well, it makes you realize, like, the opposite of your Instagram point, which is like surprise is a radical idea.
Yeah, you couldn't have done that. Right, that's a perfect analogy. That's rare. You have to really, really plan. So, in other words, like, imagine if Twitter were around when John Gotti had a friend called, his best friend in his crew was Angelo Quack Quack Ruggiero. He was he was named Quack Quack, Rob, because he's talked too much. And they were afraid that he'd talk around cops. He talked all the time. Can you imagine someone going to John Gotti and saying, "Listen, Quack Quack opened a Twitter account." At the real Quack Quack Ruggiero. And like he said, I just left the card game with John on my way to tell a guy, you got 2 more weeks. And Gotti would be like, yeah, have Quack Quack come back here. How does a criminal do anything? There's pictures of everything. Everyone you walk by on the street has a photo album, a camera, and a video camera on them. I don't care. They're 7-year-old, 8-year-old. If someone had that when I was 19, forget it. I'd be in Leavenworth still.
I'll make the easiest bet of my life. You must have loved the Keith Richards doc, Under the Influence, right?
Absolutely.
Wasn't that amazing?
Unreal.
That was so great.
I can't recommend it enough. Oh, first of all, Under the Influence, what a great twist of words there. It's about people, he was influenced by, and you hear some amazing old blues records that he owns, the stuff he likes. And I'll tell you what, the history of the Stones, you could argue, isn't really told in a more unique way than in that documentary that's just about him. You see a different side of him. A great moment happens when him and Steve Jordan, the amazing drummer that he works with from Expensive Winos, they're doing this album, and the band gets together, and somebody jokingly says, let's do some cocaine. Well, cocaine comes up, and Richard goes, then somebody goes up, what about some reefer? And Richard goes, I could do that. I could do that. I agree. We'll recommend Under the Influence by Keith Richards. Check it out. And of course, check out Vinyl. We'll recommend it. I mean, look, I'm the same way, man. I agree with you completely.
I'm going to keep watching it. I really am.
Me too.
I just, you proved something to me today, which is that, like, there's no question that this was good enough to get a lot of us deeply thinking about it.
Yes.
And not a lot of stuff does that.
No, you don't have an hour and a half conversation on a podcast if you don't like something. Yeah. I mean, when the first time I saw The Big Bang Theory, I didn't do this the next day.
I don't think I've seen it yet.
You're better off. I'd probably go gun in my head, thumbs down, but I'm an idiot because I'll watch it. And Olivia Wilde, just to look at, she's beautiful and stunning, and the other people in the Max Casella, Ray Romano is perfect in it. And all last summer when they were shooting it, Ray would come down to the Comedy Cellar where I do stand up, and he looked like that. And I think I might have said to him, "Are you playing a record executive from the '70s?" or something? And he goes,
"Oh, that's awesome."
He goes, "Yeah,
it's great." I love the career move for him too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a quality choice for him to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you got $1 billion, you could be a little free in your choice. What I said to him? I said, everybody, Chris Rock did Everyone Hates Chris, and he did Everyone Loves Raymond, and I'm going to do what's the only thing that's left. I'm pitching. I'm on the fence about Artie Lang. The jury's still out about whether, and I hope the jury takes 6 years to get syndication. Rob, this is one of the better interviews we've done. Like, I mean, when Dan, I was trying to figure out how I'm going to get how I feel about vinyl, and Danny goes, "Read this," and my God, can he talk today?
Mm-hmm.
And this went beyond my expectations, though. You're on the money. We're recommending it, but with a thumbs down. And thanks for such an, even the stuff we got into that's not about this was amazing. Amazing stories. And thanks for taking the time, Rob.
Thank you so much. It's so great to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
And when you finish the book, let me know, man. I'd like to read that because I can relate to it.
Oh, I'd love it. That would mean a lot. Okay. I'm working on it. It's fun to write.
Well, Rob, hopefully we'll talk to you soon down the road, and I wish you the best, my man.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Okay, the great Rob Barnett. Perfect. Yeah, Dan, kudos there, Danny. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a weird thing to say, thumbs down, ultimately, but the great stuff in it is enough to say, I'm going to watch again. And you got the great stuff being Bobby Cannavale. All the guys on the supporting cast, I don't remember a lot of their names. You can recognize character actors' names. But, of course, Max Costello, I think, is great and everything. Olivia Wilde is worth it for that, absolutely. And, Jagger's kid, while it's disconcerting, it's interesting. Juno Temple, I hate to praise rich kids, but she's interesting. And I'm a fan of her father. Our father's an interesting guy to me, put it that way. And he's come up in stuff that I like about the 70s, including, and the 80s, Boy Scout, all that stuff. A guy who probably had blow in 86, too. Ray Romano and all that stuff. It's worth it. The casting's great, and there's enough great stuff in it to where, you like it, and just the subject matter. But, again, I don't know. You got to get the music. That's the biggest negative. If you're those people, Rob is so right, you got to get the fucking music. You got to get rock. Imagine Scorsese movies like Goodfellas, and imagine if it's not Sunshine of My Love when De Niro makes the decision to kill everybody. It's not. Instead it's like a karaoke version of Sunshine of My Love. Not the same movie. All right, we're gonna take a break. I've thought too much, and we'll probably have. How long was that then?
An hour and 20.
Yeah, I hope that's worth a quarter for my day's work. Back after this. Ready when you are, Grizzly.
You're on.
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome. We took what seems like a very small break to you. We just took a couple hours. Selma, the Mexican maid who I love, who I would marry if she would marry me. But I think she's against that. I asked her once when I was drunk, and she said something. I don't know what the Mexican word is for sit-ups, but I think it was involved. That was involved in it. But I do want to say thanks again to Rob Barnett. Just a great job. Check out Vinyl. See what you think about it. It's worth it. But, so that was like an hour and 20 minutes, and Dad did some research about podcasts. That's fascinating to me. You said that most people don't like a 3-hour podcast because they look at it and they go, I don't have time for that. I can never catch up, and they feel like they're missing something, right? They like it more like an hour.
Yes, and this was not me. This was the University of Arizona.
I'm not saying you made it up.
Well, people on Twitter were... When you brought it up on the podcast, they were
I brought it up. When did I bring it up?
About 2 weeks ago.
I brought that up?
Yeah.
I don't remember at all. I thought I was just bringing it up now. Anyway, whatever. So, we're always doing our...
We don't want shorter podcasts, Dan. Fuck you.
Well, it's just one guy on Twitter who's like, down in his mother's basement with a grape soda. Not much to do. But the one thing I did want to come on here and, wrap this up with one quick opinion. Again, I don't know if I'm right or not. I've never been political, but, I think I'm above average intelligence. If I watch something a lot and there's some sort of, reality to it or storyline through it, I'll probably develop an opinion on it that's, in my opinion, kind of accurate. I don't know. So I do nothing but watch politics now. I really have become obsessed with it. I started even before Trump. I was getting into it a little bit. And not that I'm running for office. God, talk about that background check would take 2 seconds. This is what would happen. Hi, I'm Artie Lang, and a comedian, and I've decided I'm going to run for office. Wait 1 second. My lawyer's saying something. I'm Artie Lang. I'm announcing I'm dropping out of the race. Yeah. Oh, they got up to. They haven't got past your 16th birthday when you were arrested for attempted bank robbery. And as your lawyer and advisor on that alone, I know you're your campaign has only been 30 seconds, we advise you to drop out of the race. That's what I'm Artie Lang. I'm running for office. Before the 4 people in the audience stop clapping, 2 of them homeless to get out of the heat. One of them Dan. The other my sister. My sister, she couldn't make it. My mother might have an anxiety attack. Couldn't make it.
Now, would Sue Bacardi be there?
What does that mean?
Isn't she the girl that you went to the bank robbery with?
Oh.
Yeah.
Sue's probably busy. No, she's the negative. I don't want to point a finger at her. I got to get rid of her. She's the one I pay off to disappear. Or she's like the waitress that you throw out of the car dead in the Kennedy the Kennedy story. I would never do that. She'd be paid off. We did not rob a bank. We never dated. Get the fuck out of my face. No, you'd have to do it. You'd be the bag man. Listen, Artie's very Artie, you know, he misses you, and he understands this is awkward. But here's a bag for you. There's a lot of green stuff, and it's not salad, if you know what I mean, in there. And yeah, Artie wishes you well. I want to see you, Artie. No, you can't let that happen. This big man behind me, please, please don't. Yeah, he's the person I hide. Yeah, that's it. I'm Artie Lang, and I'm running for office. Excuse me. Yeah, they found out you robbed the bank in like literally 3 seconds, and they're gonna, really exploit that. I'd like to announce I'm out of the race. I'm throwing my support to. I don't know.
You're suspending your run.
Yeah, I'm throwing my support to Jim Norton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, Stacey Pressman. That's who I'm throwing my support to, Jim. By the way, Stacey Pressman, what the fuck? She's holding out on us. I saw her on that fucking Red Eye show last night, and she just said that when she was a kid, a teenager, Donald Trump came to her apartment with his father collecting the rent, physically them, in person, collecting the rent. It makes sense, too.
Is that a euphemism for something? They collected the rent?
I know, yeah, well, whatever it was Trump. And yeah, collected it. What is it? You never told us that? Is that little tidbit that fucking hit you in the head? Where you? Come on. And it makes sense, his father's probably like Ebenezer Scrooge and his little kid. Come on, Donald, come on. Right now, America's great. And if it ever doesn't get great, make it great again. Please? Okay, Dad. We got a couple of Jews here, Pressman. The Pressmans, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The Pressmans. If you leave if you go during Seder, the door's open because they let the angel in. Yeah. Well, instead of the angel, you go in and ask for rent. It's a Jewish tradition. I don't, but in a Seder, it's actually very sweet. The beautiful thing where, like, during the Seder, an angel comes in and blesses the house or whatever, the meal. So they leave the door open for the angel. I think the angel's name is Elijah or something, or Morris Levy. And, yeah, Ahmet Erdogan. So the angel comes in, and that's a sweet tradition, a nice religious thing where religion was the nice things about it when you're innocent and you go, wow, that's great, that's beautiful. Trump's father was probably like, when you collect from the Jews, make sure it's Seder. The door will be open for the angel Elijah. You walk in and go, the angel Elijah's not here. He's not here. You know why? Because he's a jerk. He's not a great angel. Awful angel, as a matter of fact. I'm here for the rent. A lot of kids grew up thinking the angel Elijah looks like Trump. Kids, those people are older now with their grandkids. Leave the door open, and so Donald Trump can come in and ask for the rent. A young Donald Trump, spoiled little brat. We want the rent. Oh, that door's for the angel Elijah. Tell it walking, sweetie. If you don't have the rent, I'm taking the menorah. Stacey Pressman has that memory. Come on, we got to hear more about that. Anyway, so the thing that's the point I want to make is the political thing. I watched Fox. I came to this conclusion. It might be wrong. It might be right. Nobody cares. And I am going to announce who I'm supporting. And a lot of people over the years have not asked me that, but I will just. I'll throw my 2 cents in there. And these guys are getting anybody, by the way. I might make news with this. If I support somebody, they're Ted Cruz making a big deal with those duck people, that duck family who basically said an insanely homophobic thing, like he would kill a gay guy or something. He supported Cruz. They made a big deal. Cruz brought him to rallies, flew him on a jet somewhere. Give me a fucking break. You know, the other thing, I'm not going to get too sensitive here because I'm not. I'm cynical and I'm a comic. But, you know, I joke about everything. But I'd like to think I'm a good guy. Believe me, I don't feel I'm a racist on any level. I make jokes about all of it. I guarantee you I am not. I judge everyone individually. That's exactly what I do. But I'll make jokes about everything. Because it's fun. And to me, treating somebody equally is you're able to make jokes about them. They're going to have to take everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. We all get made fun of. And that's my spin on life. That's what I do. Gay people, black people, it's all fine, man. I really, when you get enlightened, you realize that, you know, gay people are born that way. So that means if you discriminate against a gay person, you're basically discriminating against someone who's born that way. The same thing, the same reason you shouldn't discriminate against black or white because you're born that way is the gay thing. And believe me, a straight guy more than anyone should know you're born gay. It's just such a different thing. You're hooked up differently, but you're both people. And, you know, the marriage thing, I'm all for gays to get married the way everybody else does because God made you. These people talk about God. Well, God made this person that way. You know, people say it's a choice. It's not a choice. Some people might choose it when they're drunk, but I don't know.
Oh, God.
You know, but Dan has, I'm sure.
No.
But I know you haven't. We'll get that in front of Chicago. Yeah, you know, whatever. By the way, I'm working on it. You know, who let the dogs out? I want Dan. He hasn't agreed yet. Who let the dogs out? Who let that's about a black guy singing that. The dogs are, you know, let out the fuck chicks. I mean, obviously, that's the metaphor. Unless I'm missing it.
But now you're going to work on your Hillary Clinton
Unless
dog
I'm
song.
Missing it. Yeah, well, we'll talk about that soon, too. Dan, are you paid to be the tangent guy to stop me from going on? Dan just stopped me.
No.
No, I'm sorry. It was called a train of thought. And Dan's the train stop. Yeah, you know, that song, I think it's some awful one-hit wonder, but who let the dog, ooh, and that mainly, ooh, and the dogs are supposed to be, you know, the video, they're big Rottweilers and Dobermans, and of course the metaphor is, a lot of the blacks do think this, that the dogs go out and they just fuck everybody. That's Snoop Dogg's whole thing. Snoop Doggy Dogg, and he's about a dog just fucking people. Chicks, I mean. Right from behind, bam, like a lion on the Serengeti. A chick, you ever see a lion? Talk about alpha males. You watch a documentary about lions. Those women do everything. They go out, essentially their shopping is catching a cheetah or a gazelle, bring it back for the pack, they're eating it, and they're out of breath because they took it down, and the guy who didn't take it down, who's not out of breath, is Dad, who's been shitting and sleeping in the fucking den. He gets up, he's getting the Sandman out of his eyes, and what's he see? The missus with his two fucking kids eating a gazelle that she caught. He walks over, growls a little bit. They look at him. Okay, we're done. We're done. He's like, ugh. And they, without bitching at all, just leave the gazelle. It's your gazelle. And the two little cubs don't cry. They're like, we're not done yet, Dad. No, they just walk away. Blood all over their face from the gazelle. The mom, you know, please, I have to, I don't have time to eat later because I'm picking up your laundry and none of that. None of it. She picks up her bloody face and she walks away too. Daddy time. And they make sure they leave all the meat, all the good stuff for Daddy because God forbid they don't. There's consequences. Yeah, he just walks up and starts eating. And what's her job? Go get another gazelle. Chop it up for the kids. And if the two cubs are boys, or one of them's a boy, he sees this and it gets passed down to him. This used to be America. He sees that mom gets the fuck away when Dad comes. Even though he sees that mom is out of breath because she's doing all the work, but that doesn't matter because Dad's a guy. Yep. Yeah. You know, it's not big in the line community, these show American Idol. Because Ryan Seacrest would be eaten. We got a great show. And he was eating. So, you know, and they become a guy like that. And the girl cubs, they don't rebel by becoming lesbians. Hating Dad. Attaching a chain in their nose from her nose to her clit. They don't do that. Sounds like the biker ghost of Christmas past coming. Who's that? It's my daughter and her clit chain. She's mad because I ate the gazelle and Mom did all the work. No, that doesn't happen. No, it doesn't. It's the animal world where there's justice. He eats that gazelle. And, with all that bullshit, she does all the work, and sometimes she's tired, so she just lays down on all fours, laying down, just looking. She might not even be awake. She could be dead. He doesn't care. And guess what, Dad? After the meal, he's sitting down for a little while. He gets something. What do I want now? I want fucking lion pussy. I got lion cock. I want to put it in some lion pussy. Not male lion pussy, no. Another lion male would not work in this situation because the lion pussy is only it's like Americans or humans, same thing. The female in the lion world is the only sex that has the pussy, so you have to get it from her. So he needs a female lion. So he goes, want some lion pussy? Where's the kids are out playing, are being eaten by some sort of snake, and the mother's just hanging around. And the dad's walking around. Now, by the way, the mother always parks herself and her pussy close to the, where the lion's sleeping because he's not loyal. He's a dude. He's like Elvis. He gets up and he's like, he's like George Jones and Tammy Wynette. If you walk by another lion with a pussy, he'd just fuck that pussy, the nearest twat. That's what he's looking for. So she makes sure she's right next to the dad because she doesn't want him cheating on her. And picture that. Picture a guy in the human world. Why'd you cheat on me? There was a pussy closer to me. I found a pussy closer. That's why. Have you been getting this? Now, the next door neighbor brought Mrs. Johnson. She's going to go get the gazelle for me now. I'll eat there, sweetie, quite frankly. So, what does the woman do? I catch a gazelle for you. I clean it. These kids they're not raising themselves. You sleep and then you just want to eat and fucking. No, she doesn't do that. What she does is in lion talk, she and what she says, she goes, "I'm sorry. I'll make sure my pussy's closer." Clearly, my fault. Clearly, my fault. That's a lion argument. Never gets any further than that. Never gets into I overpaid for building a deck and the driveway needs tar and whatever the fuck. Get a better job. There's no job. You sleep out in the woods. Overhead. So he wakes up and sure enough, her pussy's closest, and he just walks up very casually. He's fucking her while he's yawning. It could not be more. She's facing. It really doesn't look like passionate sex. She's looking the other way, like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he's fucking her. Takes about 4 seconds. Done. That's dad. That's dad. Now you're saying, Art, how does this relate to Trump? Okay, I'm going back. Now his hair does look like, that hair looks lion-esque. What is going on there? Maybe that's what he's going for, the lion thing. That orange color, it's odd. But he's brought up alpha male is my point. You got to remember, Trump is showing human emotion in this campaign. And people like Jeb Bush and other politicians, and where they want to admit it, Rubio and Ted Cruz, they want to call themselves anti-establishment. They are card-carrying politicians. They are by the book. They went to politician school. They say stuff like talking points. They got the hand like this. Robots. We've got to defeat Hillary Clinton. The caliphate. You've got to do blah, blah, blah. Very, very regimented. Chris Christie's a refreshing change. So was Rand Paul. He's got, but they're definitely politicians. Chris Christie was out of the loop. He was like a 400-pound Jersey mafia don looking at Rubio trying to get him. Like, okay, I'm waiting. There it is. There it is. A 25-second rehearsed speech. Boom. And Rubio looks at him like he's fucking Tony Soprano. Hey, what are you making a rehearsed speech for? Hey, he's making a 25-second rehearsed speech. He gets scared. He's flustered. Repeats it again. Now he gets booed. Christie's got him, but he's too much of a Jersey guy. These fucking fruits in Iowa are like, oh, it's too scary. We hate Rubio now. He's going to be a robot, but get him out completely. So he dives on that bullet, gets him out, and now no Chris Christie. But Trump is lasting. Trump is lasting. He's not obese. That helps. Doesn't look like you take up 4 toilets in the Lincoln room. He's there, man. He is there. And he's one generation removed from Jersey, from New York, Queens construction. His old man did not grow up rich, became rich through construction. You got to be a tough motherfucker. A tough motherfucker. I don't care if you're a celebrity developer in real estate in New York, Jersey. You know the people you have to deal with. Still. As Rodney says in Back to School, they are not the Boy Scouts. You got to be tough to get a building built in New York City. And Juice, when Juice goes different ways, when you're older and you got more clout, like Trump was always a celebrity, it might be a little easier, but his father had none of that. He's collecting rent from Stacey Pressman. Okay, Dad, I'm here. That's the young girl Stacey over there. Yeah. Make sure you get her shit, too. Yeah. She's the future Mrs. Boschetti. Stacey Boschetti. By the way, I got Mike Mann on Twitter today. He tweeted out that Stacey was super intelligent. I tweeted, I don't think super intelligent. No, Mike, I'm sorry. He goes, well, tweets Art, I see you that way in my eyes. Unbelievable. What is wrong with him?
Oh.
So that's Trump. These guys don't know how. Jeb Bush doesn't know how to deal with human emotions. He's a politician who's a rich kid. You know what his father is into? Oil, man. He's got oil, those Arabs and shit. The week of 9/11, he made a deal with the Saudis, supposedly, I think. Whatever, supposedly. Cash is flowing in. And Jeb Bush has the balls to insult the American people by saying, look, I released my tax returns. Look, I'm not that rich. Yeah, right. He's making them governor money and whatever he made from the baseball team. Okay, it's not that. What he doesn't tell you is the $2 trillion his father has for him in a fucking Cayman Islands bank account. You don't see that. And he could draw from it any fucking moment. You think Jeb Bush knows how to fucking pay a car insurance bill? And this bullshit, Jeb, with the fucking, my dad's the greatest person alive. Well, no, he's not. I love my father more than anything in the world. I wasn't fucking moronic enough to realize he was, maybe not, Mother Teresa back then, probably better than my father. It got in my head. Greatest man alive. I admire the guy. I do. Greatest man fucking alive. Crazy. What about fucking Joe Walsh? Thank you. Case closed. So, it's nuts. He deals in phoniness and lies. That's all these politicians are. And they're getting up there trying to disparage Trump. What they don't realize, all these guys, even now, months later, after it's not working, they still insist on harping on how crazy what he just said was. You're getting him elected. No one can fucking figure that out yet. He went nuts on 9/11 during the last debate out of nowhere. No weapons of mass destruction, blah, blah, blah. Well, is he lying? It was a horrible decision. Horrible. And the balls, how great of him to do that in the heart of Bush country. They're loved in South Carolina because, they think they're so, pro-military and looking to protect you. George W. Bush, guys in South Carolina, if you're listening, I'm sure you're not, but listen. George W. Bush and his old man, they do not care about you. Get fucking over it. Trump probably doesn't either, but listen, at least he's putting a flashlight on the fact that none of them do. He's saying he's getting rid of the bullshit. And, my point about him being a brash New Yorker is that's how we talk. He's telling the truth and he's putting a light on the truth. And when he does it, he talks like a New York guy. He's not going to fucking, he doesn't think he's going to fucking kick out 16 million people. He doesn't really think that. Come on. He just says it. We do that in Jersey. My buddy Mike, I'll never forget it. Our prom weekend, my friend killed a kid. Long story. He did time for it. He accidentally backed over him. Well, he's kind of an acquaintance. It involved angel dust. Long story. I barely know the kid, but he did time for it. And my one buddy Mike went to my other buddy Mike. Well, you're noticing that it's not the real names, but went to my friend and told him about it. Drunkenly, like a Jersey guy, like Trump. Oh, this guy, killed the guy, blah, blah, blah. And Mike didn't do anything. And then when we got together for lunch next day, we found out it was true. Mike's like, what were you? He felt guilty. I'm like, what are we gonna help? The kid was dead. Blah blah blah. They had our friend in custody, and he goes. Mike goes. Well, I don't know. I figured it was Mike. Tall Talon. That was our. That was our cool little name for it. Bullshitting. You do it to impress chicks, like Brian Williams with the getting shot down in a helicopter. You know how many times I've told a broad I've been shot down in a helicopter, trying to get laid, whatever. I was Tall Talon. But here's a hint, Brian Williams. Maybe you're not that street smart. You don't do it on the fucking news. When you have the credibility of like Walter Cronkite type air to the anchor, you don't say it in a public forum seriously. You tell a chick in the corner of the Wakamba Lounge on 37th Street. Yeah, that could happen to me. Tall Talon. That's what Trump's doing. He's a neighborhood kid, Tall Talon. I'll kick out every other mother. That gets him noticed. He's got to get noticed. And that got him noticed. I think the thing he will harp on, though, and make sure it gets done or try it like hell, is that wall. I think he's going to try to get Mexico to pay for that wall. I know that's going to be entertaining as hell. The dismissiveness Trump has, again, with this New York attitude, that these guys, even the reporters don't understand it. They don't understand it. Chris Cuomo's an Italian guy, Paisan, God bless, but he grew up rich kid, with a liberal dad. Trump has a different upbringing. I'm sure he had privilege and stuff. His old man was rich, but it's not an old blue blood. You had that combination of those street smarts from Queens and his father had, the tough thing where you don't say no you don't accept no for any kind of an answer, combined with the Wharton School of Business. That's, you might make some money. And no drinking, whatever. And, he says his mind. So he's yelling this out. And he might sound ridiculous sometimes. Like if I was running, even though I was saying the greatest stuff in the world, I'd probably sound ridiculous. But he's still making no less of a point. And he's tapped into something that all these guys, when they get on, George Will. I love George Will. What a brilliant guy. But, he's feeding the fire. Now, George Will's a smart guy. Now, if you notice, last couple of weeks, he's like, I'm not, whatever. I don't know what to tell you. That's the only answer. I don't know what to tell you because a real change is happening. Who knows if it'll stick? Who knows if he gets elected, gets the nomination? But right now, he has tapped into something that you can't stop it because these people have made up their mind about it. And they think when they see a politician who just wants the status quo, that's not what they want. And again, Danny always says this too. This video, if you don't know about it, of a bunch of workers at Carrier Air Conditioning Company. Think about the business they do. Carrier Air Conditioning Company. It's the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, named after them. By the way, not air conditioning. Carrier Dome. I think that's the most ironic thing ever. The Carrier Dome is named after and financed by Carrier Air Conditioning. The Carrier Dome is not air conditioned. That's what we call a paradox. Okay, we'll move on. Nobody got that. I doubt I was right about it. So it's an analogy. So again, these guys don't know how to handle a guy like Trump. He's not one of them, but in a good way. So these people and these people in Indianapolis who got laid off,
1,300.
Best
That's
example.
Huge.
Okay, so 1,300 people get together. 1,300 Americans who are going to vote get together because they're called together by their supervisor and a guy, not the head of muckety muck, but a guy major up in the company. Who's, maybe a guy who, human resources. Human resources, a guy in charge of telling people bad shit and hearing their bad shit. That's what he has to do. Gets them all together. Imagine this, man. Just after the holidays, they're probably broke because their fucking wife found out it was from K Jewelers, not Tiffany. And he goes, listen, because of some issues you might have heard of, or, down south, all the bullshit rhetoric, we're moving to Mexico, right?
Yes.
Of all the places of Mexico. We're moving the Carrier factory you guys work in to Mexico. You're all out of a job. And you hear, it's on video, man. Ooh. It's what Springsteen used to sing about in the 70s. He's a brilliant artist with great songs, but he tapped into something at that point too. That's why he was big in Cleveland. Listen to Bruce in 1978 in Cleveland. He's playing clubs, but they love him. They love him. My old man loves Springsteen. He would say, I like Bruce. Why? Because my father would go, because he's for the working man. My father's one of those guys who got up in the morning, got to the 10th grade in high school, no education. Street smart as they come, tough as a motherfucker, made out of granite. Gets up every morning, 2 degrees or 110 degrees, puts his work boots on, grabs a lunch my mother made him, gets in a van and goes out. Takes the ladder off the top of that van, whether it's frozen to it or it's too humid to even see. And every day, climbs those ladders and installed antennas. Broke his ass and got himself out of hell, which was the ghetto of Newark. My father grew up on the gutter, basically. His old man died when he was 11. There's rumors that he had a heart attack. He might have been shot by a bookie. He might have been a bookie. I don't know what happened. But my father's father died when he was 11. My dad didn't know much about. And he raised himself. And he got out of there. And he got to a suburb of Newark where everybody's blue collar. Absolutely. No one's probably going to Harvard there. But it's one generation removed. He got out. And he did better for himself than his old man did. And I had more opportunities than him. But again, very, very blue collar situation where nobody had any money. I mean, my father died and there's no will. I mean, the way he died, we went on welfare. He didn't plan on that. But while we were alive, we didn't have much compared to the people I met. But I didn't know that. I didn't realize. I say it in Too Fat to Fish. I didn't think I wasn't rich until I met a rich person. And I'm like, people live a lot better. But my dad, God bless him, I love him because I didn't want for a thing growing up. I didn't know, jet skis existed, but I didn't want. I did not want for a thing. Happy as a motherfucker.
Neither did I. You're right.
Dan, nobody cares. The Dan Filato podcast. We'll get. No, you're right. But you were a rich kid. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, right.
Hiding a bunch of stuff. I saw that later. It was beautiful. No, you're right. Again, same type of thing. Yeah, that ethnic. Everybody. In other words, everybody on my block. My father climbed roofs for a living and did whatever. He cleaned gutters and installed antennas. Whatever you wanted. He was climbed the roof and was like a cat up there. My next door neighbor was a mechanic. The guy across the street hung wallpaper. Our next door neighbor on the other side worked at a factory, American Can Company. That was. But it was. Oh God, the 70s and 80s was carefree. It was so much fucking fun. I guarantee we had more fun than kids have nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
We were stupider. But we grew up smarter. It's an interesting thing. They're smarter as kids, but they're going to be dumber as adults, and that's bad. You don't want to peak at 8. I said it before to Rob. Again, they get stuff immediately, and not just, stuff that's, you hear about. Stuff like if they're having conversations, and one of them, wants to know who was, who played first base for the Phillies in 1980. Somehow that comes up. Not that kids talk like that anymore. They don't have to wait for it. They don't have to wait for 2 days till your cousin gets home. He probably knows about it, but you can't get to him because it's on your payphone type of thing. They Google it. Get out the smartphone. Bam, bam, bam. They know it. Pete Rose, by the way. And, stuff's immediate. Stuff is quick. Bam, it happens immediately. So you grow up like that, and you want stuff immediately, and that includes becoming a millionaire, becoming wealthy, but getting a career, and it just doesn't work that way. And they're disappointed over stupid shit, and that's it. Now they're pouting. So I was one generation removed from my dad growing up in the gutter in Newark, and my father liked Bruce. That's why he was for the working man. And what happened in Indianapolis the other day happened in Cleveland. Why do you think Cleveland and Detroit look like that? Those people have legitimate bitches. I those people, Youngstown. Springsteen sings about those people directly. There's a song called Youngstown. It's like they had jobs. They had real jobs. This country had factories where we made shit. We made cars. We fucking made Carrier air conditioners on an assembly line, whatever it was. And one day, a company figured out that they could make not a little more, way more money because the workers in China work for a penny a week. And we need enough just to, in Cleveland, we need enough. Okay, not a penny a week. We get it. But can you pay us enough? We just want Browns tickets. I want to go to the Browns game. Can I do that? And maybe get my fat kid a hot dog and tell him, he'll have the same job when he gets to be 19. And tell him, listen, Darius, whatever your fucking name is. white kid named Darius. No, listen, Todd. You're fat. Hopefully you'll thin out when you get puberty. But anyway. That's your third fucking hot dog. I work at Carrier. I'm not made of money. They have an old joke at Carrier. I'm going to refer to. I'm going to say, my kid blows. I know you don't get that because you're also stupid. When you figure it out, you'll really laugh. I know we don't have any air conditioning, but that's not the point. Yeah, we made stuff. We made eggs. But one day, so that happens in the late '60s, '70s, and all these American workers, the stuff was good. Christmas, got a tree, everyone's got chicken in the pot, all that bullshit we were promised, and stuff was good for a while. They had the Cold War there, but whatever. And one day, what happens in this video that you just saw the other day in Indianapolis, they get together. We're closing now, man. Plant's closing. Jobs are going to China. And what do you do? What do you do? Now that factory's there, but nothing's going on. All of a sudden, it looks like Cleveland. A shame. A shame. So this is still going on. And Trump is talking about this directly. They wouldn't even have brought this up if he didn't bring it up. Directly what he's talking about. I'll create jobs. Somehow I'll do this. I'm a businessman. I will go to China. Listen to what he's saying. And I'll rape them in these deals. I know how to do it. That's why he points to art of the deal. He sounds like a braggadocious idiot when he does it, but hey, maybe he's right. Look, I can use those skills the same way I can use those skills with a guy who I'm buying lumber from in fucking Mississippi. I could do it with the guys in China and Mexico. And you know what? Maybe he can't. Actually, a good chance he can't. I don't know. But why not give him a fucking shot if you're that guy in Indianapolis who just lost a job? Why not? At least he's saying it. And he's saying it so loud and he's so proud and such a bragger. You know he's going to try. Again, forget the crazy shit like deporting everybody, blah, blah, blah. The wall will probably go up. Mexico throws in a quarter. I don't know who knows. Maybe gets the cartel guys to pay for what they have in their closet. But, he knows. He said, look, he does have the facts about that. We get killed by these people. So, and what happens with generations from cities? All those people in Cleveland in the 60s and 70s who lost their jobs because they went to China. Now they don't know what to do. They have kids, and those kids grow up, Before you know it, they're overcharging me for Viking and Denny's. Big circles on their eyes and dirty fingernails, like a mechanic for 30 who's 48 years old. They're 19. They're telling me how much they love when I do the Black Emotional Friends on Howard. And what do? I overcharge them for stand-up. I try to keep the prices down. But, again, but these are great people. And when they hug me, sometimes they realize I'm one of them. And I am. Believe me, I'm one of you. I'm not some genius comic on his high horse here. I'm a guy. If you played softball with me, you got a guy who plays third. It's kind of funny. I went for it and I rolled the dice. And that's it. So my father, we were in the same boat, not working. But the way, and so what will happen when you see your kids not getting the opportunities you thought they would, and they're doing worse than you, and you realize you broke your ass in that plan for so fucking long, hoping they at least go to college because you didn't. And when that doesn't happen, and you see them maybe get into drugs, and you realize, well, the drugs are getting here pretty cool. Everybody's making money over that, but I can't build a fucking air conditioner. It starts to aggravate. Then maybe one of your kids, God forbid, ODs or something. You go, this is fucked up, and nobody's doing anything about it. And finally, what's happening is kind of a moment in the movie Network, which I know none of you fucking know, but I'm going to say it anyway. The movie Network where, Peter Finch, his character, I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. In a way, that's what Trump is. Finch looked retarded and homeless, yelling it out. And Trump's got that hair. But that's what he's kind of saying. And what happens? The people like Robert Duvall in the movie, his boss, they want status quo. The executives want status quo. So what do? They paint the guy as being an idiot. They're like, this guy's crazy. Don't listen to him. He's crazy. Because they want everything to stay the way it is. They're fine. They don't want any change. This is fine. And the political system that's set up, I don't know, whatever it is, I'm not an expert here, but whatever the political system is now led to Whether you like Obama, Bush, blah, blah, blah. It led to that plant closing. I don't know why that happens. I don't know if it's out of people's... But that's what happened. And who do you blame? The people in charge. Flint, Michigan right now. In Flint, Michigan... By the way, I need subscribers for the podcast. 2 years ago, I had a bad investment. I put all of my money into a water park in Flint, Michigan. Very bad. 8,000 of the kids I've led are made of concrete now. No, I'm saying, yeah. By the way, want to hear a story real quick? Talk about tangents. By the way, this is where the guy in Sirius... Oh, jeez, I don't know. I almost gave away something. Okay, we'll move on. You'll hear more about that, what I just talked about. Consider that a tease. No, I picked up a chick the other night at... not picked up. I went. The young girl, about 26 years old. She was at the Comedy Cell the other night, drunk. What we call a limping gazelle. I saw a limping gazelle. She was hurt. Cute. She saw me do my act. I had a good set. She's like, well, you know. And I'm like, thank you. Have you ever been in a Range Rover? Tied up in the back. No, so we start talking. She lives on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. We get in the Range Rover. She goes, we could just take a cab. I want you to see my Range Rover. Oh, God. I want you to see how I'm having above average income. We pulled up. We went to the garage, and I had the black guy pull it up for $10, and I showed it to her, and then we got in a cab. I'm kidding. No. I was going that way anyway. So we go up to Upper East Side. And again, she's all right, but I guess she's young, you know, and it's like I was telling Russman even to tell this, too. It's so funny. I disappeared. Sometimes you disappear out of there because, you know, a chick hangs a curve over the plate above the bar. The Comedy Cellar is set up so perfect for a comic to get laid. It really is easy because what happens is they see you downstairs and hopefully you do well. And, you know, that's the only time I got power over a chick, that she sees me. She's being in front of a crowd, you know, being funny. You got power in that case. You're making money. And wow, it's sexy. Even I look kind of sexy. But just for that night when she's got the... gin and tonics in her. Then you go up and there's a table where all the comics sit, and the audience comes up and has drinks right in front of you. So they're looking at you like you're in a zoo display, but they know you just killed and that's what you do for a living, and it's a little interesting. They start talking to you. For me, it's the kind of way that the only way I can pick up a chick, really, besides Match.com and waiting on some paperwork. So I had the Upper East Side with this kid, and I'm trying to make her laugh. You know, that's all I have. The booze is falling off, and I'm like, I gotta keep making her laugh. I gotta make her laugh until she realizes, oh my God, there's cum on my jacket.
Oh, God.
I got her laughing. Oh, wait, a fat guy just came on my kitchen floor. And then she kicks me out, and she realizes there's no case. She has no case. No witnesses. So, a doll. So I go, you know, look, what am I doing? I'm very single now, and I'm going around, hey, okay, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And I knew she didn't know a lot about, you know, modern day shit, but I thought maybe she did say that she worked at a law firm. A wealthy father. Again, millennials. These millennial chicks all have the same story. Their dads pay for everything. They got an apartment somewhere in New York City. They paid for college. She went to Duke, this girl. Oh. Duke. Harvard of the South. A Blue Devil. And I'm assuming she did not pay for that. Unless, you know, how many hours can you fucking work? Teaching cheerleading. Got a car in the city. You'll need a car, so he pays for a parking spot, which is like the rent of a big house in, you know, Alabama. An estate in Alabama or a parking spot in New York City, same thing. And she's got a car. Nice little sports car. Dad pays for everything. But all he asks in return is, you're my little girl, try to like make work happen, try to make it worthwhile that you went to law school. And she was. She's very sweet. She was doing that. She was making her dad proud. And she had just discovered Fluff and Fold. It was great. No roommate, by the way. Dad is doing all right for himself. But we had a great conversation. So I'm trying to make her laugh. I do that joke I just did. I said, well, God, you know, I'm broke. You might not want to come out. Why? I just, you know, last year I invested in a water park in Flint, Michigan. That's a topical joke. I figured she said she's topical. She says she reads the newspaper, but clearly that means nowadays she looks at her phone for 2 seconds until she gets a Facebook alert. Her friend Danielle got her hair colored, so she stops reading about the Middle East. Yeah, I said that to her. I said that joke to her. Now imagine. Okay, It's a bit of a risk. Imagine I said that and she doesn't know about that story. That's an odd thing to say. She had no idea about Flint, Michigan and the water, the lead. A major story. No idea. Now I realize that. I go, oh my God. I just said, it must sound ridiculous. It must sound like this. Hey, Lily. She's like, what do you mean? And I realize it. Now, one of two things could happen. I could say it's a joke, but I didn't want to say it was a joke because, I don't know, that means, I don't know, I would think she'd be weirded out by it. Or I could do what I did. For the next few minutes, carry on a conversation as if I have a water park in Flint, Michigan. That's what I chose. What do you mean? What do you mean? Water? You really own a water park? Why Flint, Michigan? Well, I don't know. In the summer it gets really hot. Really? But isn't it cold most of the year? Yeah. Why'd you do that then? Well, I don't know. My buddy had some paperwork that he had research. Is he from there? He went to school there. That must be a challenge. Well, you get, towels and stuff. You need towels. My voice just slowly got lesser and less loud. I was like, she goes, I want to talk about this? I go, yeah, it's very, it's awkward because it didn't work out well. Like, well, I'm sorry. I'll, send you good thoughts about that. Okay, great. We ended up, she never knows, by the way, there was a joke. I never told her. She thinks I have a water park. God forbid, she goes, my friend happens to be from Detroit, and she calls me next summer. My friend happens to be in Detroit, and we got, I have my suit here. Where's your water park? You drive to the Detroit River, and you jump in. You like lead? So, can you imagine? I didn't want to tell her it was a joke because I was more embarrassed. Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I have a water park. I'm talking like I have a water park. I made out with her for about a half an hour. We made out, but she wouldn't let me do anything else. Nice girl. I mean, I don't have time. I'm not calling her back. No, maybe we'll do something. I don't know. She's, but these millennial girls, they all are. They look gorgeous. Okay, they look gorgeous, and they fly home a lot, and they have no human emotion. So I call them the Millennial Falcons. I copyrighted that word, by the way. Millennial Falcons. Come on, baby. Yeah, the guy, the politician in charge for that is just mumbling. This woman, what's her face on Fox? Oh, God damn it. No, she's on CNN. One of the CNN anchors, a chick. She's like grilling him. What happened 2 months ago? You could have done this. It would have worked. I know. Are you resigning? No, I want to. People are right now. Flint, Michigan. Think about Flint, Michigan. Right now in Flint, Michigan, they don't have water. Water. You got to leave Flint, Michigan. What people? My other plan. Your other plan. You leave Flint. You can't stay there. You got to keep buying bottles of water. Come on. Come on. So you ever see black people when they get their hair wet? It looks the same. Maybe they, just don't shower. My buddy Mike Gordon, black kid, when he would go in the pool, when we go in the ocean, when we go down the shore, I'm like, wow, it's amazing. It just doesn't. Then he would say, "Fuck you, fat boy." We had a great relationship. So that's it. So these politicians are bullshitters, and when they're just sick of it. Those poor people out in Indianapolis, they're looking at maybe their kids are young. You see their future gone. They're not going to do as well as you, and blah 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 blah. And the beat goes on. Springsteen became a big star because he wrote amazing music and because he tapped into something like that. And it's still going on. So in other words, those people, say you're those people in Indianapolis, who are you going to vote for? The guy yelling on get more jobs or the other guys who've been talking like politicians talk for the last 100 years? That's what Trump tapped into. And I might officially, and this I realize this only matters in our little world, but I might officially say I support Trump. First of all, he's the only presidential nominee I've ever hung out with. I golfed 9 holes with the guy, and we had a blast. He's like a big kid. He would goof on my sneakers. I'd goof on his tie, his shirt, his face. It's like playing the dozens with a guy. He's got an arrogance and a funniness to him that's very, very rare amongst guys of his stature. I roasted him 2 times. He's been on Stern a couple times. I like the guy. I've hung out with the guy extensively. Put it this way: me, Donald Trump, and Eli Manning golfed 9 holes at Trump's place in Bedminster for a charity. Eli I love, and Trump's a billionaire, and Eli's got a Super Bowl ring as a quarterback. I'd much rather hang out with Trump. So, again, I haven't officially, I got to think this out a little bit better, but when these people come out for Trump, these celebrities, they haven't gotten a lot of credibility from people, and neither is Trump. But you know what? I'm understanding what it is now. It's not about how he says it. He's basically saying, look, guys, and when they criticize him for flip-flopping and being a businessman who did pay off politicians like in the past, he's going, yeah, you're arguing my point. I know the other side of the business. Guys, I did this for a long time. I paid all of them off. When he says everybody liked me, of course he gave them money. He's the first guy to tell you, look, I'm telling you the truth. This is how it goes. Hillary liked me. I gave her money. By the way, he gave a bunch of money to Hillary's foundation. Guess what? She's not asking for, she's not giving it back. Hates him. He's the devil. She ain't giving his money back to him. Of course not. She keeps it. They all keep the money. And they all go to his wedding, too. Why? But like you said, I pay them to. Yeah. Jeb Bush, the other day in the debate, people were booing Trump when they bashed Jeb. That makes no sense. 2% of the state likes Jeb. Trump's got 40%. It makes no sense. Trump points out they're paying him. Those are people that Jeb is paying. And he's fucking right. In other words, those people go in the arena, say you have no choice at all. Some guy comes up to you and says, here's $50. Yell for Jeb Bush. You do it. That's the simple version of it. Essentially, that's an accurate statement. They're getting paid to do it. Trump ain't paying anybody. It's unreal because he's not getting paid. He's not owned by anybody. And that's again, he sounds braggadocious and crazy when he says it. And he'll mix in a sexist or a racist thing too. And eventually I do think if someone's going to break him down, and if Trump people are listening, but just really just hammer in his head before he goes in front of that microphone, because you do lose control. You could tell him whatever you want if you're his advisor or handler. But once he goes in front of that mic, it's out of your hands. You can't control it. He's going to say what he's going to say. Hammer home to him that when he's, God forbid, he says something that can be construed as racist against like Obama, or real sexist with Hillary, or anything else. Anti-Semitic with Sanders, all that stuff. I'm sure he's not any of those things. And if I thought he was one of those things, I wouldn't vote for, I wouldn't support him in a heartbeat. I don't think he is. But a crack he makes, like happens with a lot of comics, might be construed as that. And that really could be the downfall. So just hammer that in his head. Just really concentrate on policy and shit when you're talking about people where it could be more sensitive. Because to me, that's the only thing that could happen that could screw him up. And if I heard it and it really sounded racist or anti-Semitic or really, that anti-women, come on, man. I wouldn't vote for a guy like that. I'm not that kind of guy, is my point. I joke about everything, but believe me, everyone is an individual to me, and that's how it's got to be. And I think Trump is like that too. But he can say stuff that it's brash. They're already doing it with stuff. He does it with them. They do it with him. These politicians take stuff you say and they go nuts with it. That's the one thing that might derail him. The rest though is a beach ball coming in. He basically had a pretty good showing in Iowa. They thought he'd do worse, and then in New Hampshire, forget it. Destroyed. Now these people in South Carolina know people do really like him. And it could turn into a win. They're not wasting their time by voting for him. He's way ahead here. I think he just sits back, and what he was yelling out about 9/11 it was true. And all these people will get on. Dick Cheney, okay, is coming to the defense of Jeb. George W. Bush, Jeb's brother, who's is proving he's the biggest boob. Every time he talks, my God. Looking at the cue cards, it looks like he doesn't even know Jeb's name. He's coming out for him against Trump. Cheney, Lindsey Graham, all these people, they're politicians. They want the status quo. Whatever. Because I tell you what, the people who own that carrier company, they're not the only ones who make money if that company saves money. By far, a lot of people. That are the people Trump talks about. A lot of people in these super PACs that Trump talks about that gives these politicians money. A lot more of them than you would think probably benefit if the carrier air conditioning company makes money. Secretly, they do. Absolutely, they do. So they don't. They want what makes us more money? Going to China? Going to Mexico? Sure, go. We'll deal with it. And the same boat. These people are moaning, practically crying. They found out they lost their job. They got lunch pails in their hands. It's like out of a fucking John Steinbeck novel. It's a Cannery Row I'm watching. They fucking oh God, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Don't worry, we've got a plan in place. In a few months, fuck you. You can hear him just say "fuck you" to the bullshit. Yeah. So a lot of these people who fucking own these politicians, and I'm using Carrier as an example, probably they benefit. It's a big company. They're all over the place. Think about it. They're the biggest air conditioner manufacturer in the world, probably. It's Maytag, whatever. But I mean, they're huge. I guess they didn't have time to put air conditioning in the Carrier dome. So think about that. These politicians that are coming out against Trump, they're trying to say he's mean, he's racist, he's sexist. Bullshit. The exact opposite is true. You know who's sexist? You know who's racist? The fucking politicians who are owned by these people who benefit from the Carrier dome or the Carrier air conditioning company. They benefit from them going out of business or going to Mexico. They benefit from going to Mexico. Those people who support those politicians who let it happen, those politicians are racist because who works for Carrier? Black people, their wives, blah, blah, blah. Minorities, their wives. They're getting fucked over. So the politician that wants that to happen because he secretly gets paid from the Carrier company making more money and he's happy about them going to Mexico, he's the racist. He's the sexist because he's benefiting, and happily so, from people who are probably minorities with wives and children, and the women who work there with husbands. He's benefiting from their downfall. Okay? They're more racist, believe me, than Donald Trump when he points out that Megyn Kelly was kind of bitchy and it might have been because she was having her period. Think about it. Not a bad point. Look who's out for Trump, supporting Trump. Giuliani right here, supporting Trump. Say what you want about Giuliani. To me, he's a good man. There's a lot of honesty there. Gave me a big high five at the charity softball game. We're on the same team, and I had a big double. And he seemed sincere. No, but again, these people for Trump are like, I think they know what I'm telling you. And I'm going to keep watching and maybe figure it out more. And I'm going to give my official nod to somebody, too. And no one's going to acknowledge it because I'm a gutter snipe. But listen. To a few people on Twitter, it might sway their vote. I might get Monica and Gunner to come over. But I kind of figured it out watching this so long, and I'm not the brightest of guys. That's what's happening here. Trump is shining a flashlight on all this bullshit of politicians who are happy, or secretly happy, because the people that back them are happy, when a plant in Indianapolis goes to Mexico. Trump is saying, look, I don't take any money from these people. They do. They're owned by these people, and that's it. I know because I was the guy who gave money. I was him. I'm shouting it from the mountaintops. And when people that are anti him pointed out, he's saying he gave money to the people. He's a hypocrite. He's telling you he's a hypocrite, you dick. Why do you know he's a hypocrite? Because he just fucking said it. He's making a point. Yeah, I'm a hypocrite. That's the fucking point. And I think Trump, now call me naive here completely, but I think Trump really did have an epiphany at some point. I think he really did. I made billions of dollars, and I don't know. Maybe I will give back. I know how this works. He said in one of the debates, my kid's going to have the company. Fine. Everything's fine. Believe me, I'm going to keep an eye on them. I want them running it. They're secretly, smart guys are secretly behind them.
You wouldn't leave it to his wife?
Smart guys are secretly behind them. He's not like Ivanka and, big cranium junior there. Abnormally large forehead junior Trump. Believe me, there's guys, very, very smart guys behind them. But he's saying, look, they can have it. Fine. I don't care anymore. I really think I can make this country great. I think I know how. And what's the spine behind it? Jobs. What's linked to jobs? Immigration. Can directly link to them. Those two things are linked. They're Siamese twins. And hopefully Ben won't separate them. By the way, I just came up with the greatest commercial ever for Donald Trump. Immigration and jobs are like Siamese twins. and someone like Ben Carson will separate them. I won't, because I didn't go to medical school.
That deserves a pardon from Donald Trump if he becomes president for you.
You better fucking watch it. That'll be the last speed tick I get. That'll be the last time I get in trouble for mixing a martini outside the truck. Outside a car, and I light it for you while speeding backwards with an illegal immigrant. No, so that's but okay, he's shining a light on all that bullshit. But the way he's doing it, they have something to swing at, because the way he doesn't look like a smooth jazz man when he's doing it. I love Obama too, man. I like that guy. I voted for him twice, but you get to I don't know. A lot of things he did that are good too, man. Absolutely. If you watch Fox News, I know the fair and balanced about it either. But I'm not some guy to the right. I'm not to the left. I do that with politics too. You judge people individually. You got to know politics. Every campaign's different. I voted for George W. Bush because I didn't want to overcarry, because I really didn't want to change a guy in the middle of a war. Well, I know the war's going to last 2 centuries now. Another stat that's the present. People are saying, by the way, people in the know, experts are saying that we will be in Afghanistan for so long that the people, the people that might be the last people to fight there, it's like 20 years before they're born right now.
Jeez.
That's the quagmire word. And Trump and Barack Obama's the kind of guy I want to have, people at least visually represent. People think represent this country. Obama's a rock star. He's smooth, man, and he's a great communicator. But Trump is the first guy who didn't. But Barack needed the cash, like they all did, to get elected. The Bushes maybe didn't either. But you know what? They don't spend their precious oil money. Trump's getting out the checkbook, man. You know what money Dick Cheney has? Halliburton. How about conflict of interest? Dick Cheney has a construction company that basically built back most of Iraq after he ordered it bombed. What? So, Halliburton, Dick Cheney's got the kind of money that can make you disappear. And he pays over everybody, enough people in your life to where eventually you didn't exist. Everyone who knew you existed is either paid off or dead. That's the kind of cash Dick Cheney has. It's scary. Trump's getting out the checkbook and doing this. And he points all this out, but the way he does it is by saying, look, that's really bad, but look over here. And it's a big canker sore he's showing you. Look at this canker sore on my lip. It's disgusting. It's bleeding. It's pussy. That's one of his comments that he makes. So the people talk about the canker sore. You understand? His enemies talk about the canker sore, but not what the canker sore represents. And that's something that might work. Something different. So that's why I'm leaning towards Trump, and that's my explanation to you guys. To me, it makes sense. Trump might be the guy because he and the whole link, like Danny said, is this video of the people in Indianapolis getting fired because the company's moving where? To Mexico. That's a home run for Trump. The place he wants to build a wall around. The job's going to Mexico. And that's on videotape. The only reason that's a fucking story is because it's on video. And we have something called the internet. And this is the internet at its best possible work. In the old days, a lot of politicians squashed that. You never see it. Now it gets some jerk off, throws it up on YouTube who's smoking weed in his basement. So they have to show it. Happens every day, probably. More often than you think in this country. You never hear about Indianapolis. All over. Maybe Denver, Milwaukee, not just Cleveland and Detroit. All over. That's happening to people. And that's why Donald Trump can do no wrong, because of those people. That's it, guys. And guess what? You're right. I think the working man's right here. You might have to give him a shot. It's worth a shot. That's all I'm saying. So that's my Donald Trump thing. Also, we're going to get to this yet, but we're going to have this audio tomorrow. What I'm about to play is Hillary Clinton barking like a dog. It's actually Hillary Clinton. It's actually her yesterday speaking to a crowd. And she's doing stand-up comedy, by the way. She's now doing stand-up. She sets up a story, and she brings up a psychological study. That's Jay Leno type shit. Yeah, I'm reading the psychological study. Anyway, when some of them are not telling the truth, it's a dog that was a guy's lying or something. The dog barks. Like a lie detector for a dog. Like, he's lying. He's lying. I thought that'd be great. If you don't know, we took that for the Republican people. And every time Republican lies, you get a dog barking. Okay, that's by the way what she says. That's her premise. She sets it up like that. And she's like Richard Pryor in that first concert film. She's got the fucking mic out and she's having fun. And then she goes, okay, like when a Republican says, Benghazi is Hillary's fault or whatever she says. And then she goes, woo, woo, makes a dog sound. Is she retarded? Who advised her for that? We now have everybody in the world, including her enemies, which is everybody in the world. Now has tape of her, not an imitator, her barking like a fucking dog. You know how many Z Morning Zoos had fun with that today? Who let the dogs out? Ooh, ooh. How many times was that joke today? Who let the dog? Ooh, ooh. And I'm going to tie that in with Dan tomorrow because Dan's going to have that in his song. Dan has a version of that song.
Oh, God.
And the version is, who let the Brussels fans out? Ooh, ooh. It's going to be Hillary barking. Who let the Brussels fans out? Woo, woo. Who let the Brussels fans out? Who let the Brussels fans out? Who let the Brussels Griffins? No, it's pronounced Griffins. Out. Woo, woo. Tune in tomorrow for that. That's your tease. Thanks, Rob Burnett. Thanks, Danny. And do not forget to remind me, Dan, because you hate that bit. Love the audience. Hate yourself. We're doing that bit tomorrow, and you're reminding me about it. Don't forget it.
The dogs?
The one I just did. The one where you go, who let the Brussels Griffons out? And then it's, ooh, ooh, it's Hillary. You understand?
And you know what? People on Twitter, you can stop reminding me the Westminster Dog Show is on right now, okay?
Yeah, because he knows. Believe me.
Okay.
I know he knows. I hear him slapping it. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. She's best in show. That's... Oh, my God. Is that best? Oh, my God. Her ribbon is crooked. Her ribbon's crooked. How could you vote for her? But you do not vote for her over the Brussels Griffon. Her ribbon, there's a poodle with a ribbon crooked. Artie, I'm spackled to the door. Why, did the Brussels Griffon win? No. But she, the winner had a very hot trainer. I think his name is Eduardo. He saved me yesterday in the fire department elevator. People said, how do you find Dan? It was in the gay fire department area.
Oh.
I said, just follow the pink fire truck. Who let the Brussels Griffons out? Woo, woo! With Hillary's cough. It's going to be amazing. And now you gave me a new bit. Thanks. We'll do the Westminster Dog Show, too, for an hour. I'll be doing Dan for an hour jerking off to the Westminster Dog. Thanks for bringing that up, Dan. How could you? Oh, my God. How could you do that? He pronounced it Griffin. It's Griffon. His own dog. He said, this is Buster, a Brussels Griffin. Come on. You're ridiculous. You know what? I have a Brussels Groupon I'm using. I'm going to... I'm taking my Brussels Griffon to Brussels with a Brussels Groupon. What kind of mustard? Guess what mustard? Brussels Grey Poupon. So here's what I'm doing. Ask me what I'm doing. What are you doing? Okay, here's what I'm doing. I'm taking my Brussels Griffon to Brussels using a Brussels Groupon. And when we get there, bringing a sandwich with mustard. The kind of mustard? Brussels Grey Poupon. And if you're on the fence about what you think, that's one do Brussels sleep on. I'm voting for Brussels Hillary Clinton. And like NBC says, that's one do Brussels grow on. My dad fought in Brussels, Vietnam. Well, I'm actually a fan of the ladies. I'm a real Brussels Don Juan. I don't like Sammy Sosa. He's a Brussels Millennial. Who got the Brussels Millennial? He's a Brussels Millennial. Get my meaning, son? By the way, I had Dan. These are all lies, by the way. I had Dan having a threesome with 2 Spanish firemen. And the next morning I get mad because the Spanish firemen that Dan fucked that don't have a sense of humor. I said, guys, Dan told me your names. Now don't tell me. Which one is Jose and which is Hose B? Who let the Brussels of hands out? Hillary Clinton's on tape, barking like a dog. What is she? Who's letting her do that? Am I right, Dan? Who's letting her do that?
I can't believe he did it.
Who's letting her fucking do that? She was dressed like she was second in command of the Enterprise the other day in the yellow. Jesus. She's dressed like the sun. You think she thinks the Earth revolves around her? You think? President hand. She probably got that real quick from the closet at their house up in Westchester. Somewhere there's an Asian whore who fucked Clinton or left it there by mistake looking for that dress. All right, I teased it. Lots going on tomorrow. Okay, please come. Come on. Brussels, come on. I love you all. Thanks, Rob Burnett. Rob Burnett, amazing job. Amazing. Check out.